world shrouded in the darkness of tyranny, where truth is often a casualty and ignorance wears a crown, a new dawn is breaking. As the commercial media empires crumble, a courageous network emerges, one fueled by truth, driven by courage, and dedicated to awakening minds. This is not just a podcast. This is a revolution of consciousness. Welcome to the network of awareness, a beacon of light cutting through the chaos. Join us as we navigate the tumultuous waters of current events, delve into the intricacies of politics, explore the realms of spirituality, decode the mysteries of health, unravel the complexities of economics, and investigate topics of cultural significance across America and abroad. Prepare for insightful interviews with thought-provoking guests who are inspired to educate you. We are the antidote to misinformation, the remedy for apathy, and the catalyst for change. This is your connection to a network of truth, courage, and awareness. Tune in, open your mind, and join the great awakening. I am your host, ORRA, the Informationalist, guiding you through this journey of awareness. Welcome to the Network of Awareness podcast radio station.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like Aura, the Informationalist, the Informationalist, the Informationalist.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, or other professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or positions of the Network of Awareness's producers, subsidiaries, entities, or any other associated parties.
All right. Peace and greetings, people. Welcome to the Network of Awareness. And today we got a great show with another author, and I'm going to give you a little description of some of the things we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to be bringing on a guest, Eloheem Ali. He's the author of FFFHAMS. We're going to talk about what FFFHAMS represents, but this episode is a Truth Seeker Series episode. And in this Truth Seeker Series episode, I'm going to present Discover the Hidden Truths of the Matrix Beyond the Illusion. And in this thought-provoking episode, I want you to join us on this captivating exploration of the profound idea that we live in a matrix, a constructed reality shaped by our collective beliefs, expectations, and desires. Delve into the concept that this matrix is not just a concept from science fiction, but a powerful force influencing our perception of the world. We are so deeply immersed into this construct that we don't recognize its presence, accepting it as a sole reality. So I'm going to interview Eloheem Ali, who's the author of FFFHAMS, which means Food, Forest, Foraging, Hunting, Anti-Fragile, Modern Society, Generation 1, The Philosophy of Order. This featured book is an invitation to question, challenge, and ultimately transcend this matrix we live in. So prepare for our journey in this discussion of self-discovery, spiritual awakening that demands courage and commitment. As we embrace the unknown and question the fabric of our reality, we unlock the potential to create a new world aligned with our true selves. So join Ali and myself as we unravel the layers of our existence, peeling back the illusions to reveal the profound depths of our souls. It's time to question everything and embark on the transformative journey towards a reality that reflects our authentic being. So with that being said, let's bring on our guest, Eloheem Ali. And welcome to the show, brother. How you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm ready to get into some info. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to bring you on. You know, I caught you on TikTok and I became a follower of yours on TikTok, and I started seeing these videos where you always have your green screen presentation and you talk talking, and I was just captivated. I was like, wow, this brother's got a lot of information. And then I was going to ask you, like, hey, can we bring on this guy, Eloheem Ali, onto the show as well? And then you're like, well, that's my name. I was like, oh, okay, so you're the author of the book. So now people are going to know that you're the author of this book. And let's pull the book up real quick so people can see the cover. And we're going to have, for all the listeners that are watching, we're going to have links to his book and website that you can get. We're also going to have his TikTok page. Let me take this banner off real quick. I like the cover. I like the image of the boy with the dragon. And this book is phenomenal. But let's get to know you a little bit before we even get into some of the details or some of the inspiration behind this book, so that the listeners can to get to know what you're about a little bit here. So what is like your background? Were you I guess the first question was, have you been raised in any type of religion, either Islam or Christianity?
Yeah,
the reason why I'm asking, because I read some of your book, and that's one of the questions I thought of.
I was definitely, well, it's always been interesting. I've been raised in Christianity, but I always had a Muslim name, and like Ali, and that comes from my father's side. But my mother's side is very Christian, so I've always been kind of in both worlds of that, and obviously wondering as a child which one is right. That was like my thing growing up as a kid. But I definitely grew up within a religion.
And what got you inspired to? Were you always a writer at heart? What got you into wanting to write, especially a book of this magnitude?
Well, I always was a writer. I loved writing since I was really, really young. My handwriting is terrible, but I always always loved to write. I wrote little stories as a kid that would come to me, and we'll get to that. But I also wrote poetry. I wrote raps for a while. I used to write other people's raps. I used to write songs, R&B songs. I mean, I have been writing for a very, very long time, and I definitely deeply enjoy it. But regarding the book, though, it's a bit of a different story. And without going too deep into it, that goes into more of sometimes you'll hear me say on my TikTok, this was given to me. So there's things that I write that are just purely my ideas, but then there are things that are given to me that I must write, right? And this book falls in that category. And it's not really an accident that the books and writings that resonate with people the most are the ones that are given to me. Of course, I had some great ideas that I've done well, but it's definitely the things that were given to me more spiritually that have somehow resonated with, people from all walks of life on different parts of the planet.
Now, when you say given to you, so that people understand, you're saying that it was given to you in a way that people say that they downloaded something, or something was given to them spiritually, in the sense that God, the Most High, or source energy just gave it to you and you just had the understanding?
Yeah, so it's definitely a spiritual thing. And the reason why I always say given to me, and I don't get too specific beyond that, because I know people, because of people's misunderstanding of what God is, and the fact that we're raised in a very monotheistic society. So that's where all the confusion comes from. When I say God and somebody else says God, even if we're talking about two different gods, we're going to assume that we're both talking about God, which is going to take a whole different perspective. So what I like to say is that objectively, from my experience, so I should say subjectively, but from what I know in my experience, I was given this information by a specific entity, right? And so again, I don't want to use the word God or angel or whatever, because that goes into people's beliefs. So I'll just say an entity that transcends the realm that we normally walk in. And I could not originally understand the information. Originally, it was way too much for me. That I was in college. I was about 19, I believe. And it was way too much for me to honestly understand at that time. But I was guided in a way toward information that would help me understand it. And over the years, I've grown into the information I was given and have been able to give the information in a way. And that's where the past writing plays a part into it, because since I'm so experienced in writing, I get the information and now I can actually create things that people can easily understand and readily understand and begin to build upon themselves selves. So, yeah, that's how the information comes to me. I don't like to use the term download anymore. And we can get into that when we talk about the matrix, because I think of what people automatically begin to think about the matrix when you say, if I start using terms like download. But yeah, significantly, they're just the difference in words is like a download. It was literally given to me like that way.
And that's why I mentioned those few phrases, because everybody has a different form of understanding. I like to call it the creator of all, or where all energy comes from, because that's how I look at God, as energy, which is no beginning and no end, but the beginning to the end. So I know exactly what you mean. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast, why I even started, is because when I went through my rites of passage ritual with my godfather, who's a medicine man, because we're from Puerto Rico, and even though I'm from New York, if you want to call that construct Puerto Rican or whatever, I went through a rites of passage, and in my rites of passage, it was revealed to me directly.
That's amazing.
And my godfather he said, the creator says that you're going to be his messenger.
Wow.
He's like, this is amazing. I've never had anything like this happen, So I know exactly what you mean. And now here I am at 45 years old doing this, being a messenger for the creator.
Word.
And getting people to understand what this reality is really all about, as well as me evolving in the reality as well, breaking free from this matrix one day at a time.
And what you said though is so amazing, because I always say a lot of these people who have what we call schizophrenia, what we call like some of these orders, hallucinating, these people who are having these we call nightmares and crazy dreams and things like that, and outer body experiences and sleep paralysis, these different types of things. These are, some people call them sensitives and indigo, and all these, like you said, there's all these different terms, but a lot of them have a negative connotation because there's no rites of passage anymore. We don't have shamans in every community anymore. So that's why I think what you said is amazing. We don't have people to say, hey, no, this is a good thing, what you're going through. It's good, right? And so if I have the lens, when I was going through things as a child, and my parents were wonderful. I love my parents. I love my family. They were all great. But when you tell your children about demons and devils, and if they see anything that you don't understand is associated with demons and devils, it creates a negative spiritual experience, which is going to change the whole perspective of this journey they're going to go through in childhood. So that's why I said that's amazing, because you had somebody say, no, this is awesome. And being able to kind of give you a pathway to go upon and confidence within it. It's just so vitally important.
Yeah. And anytime I associated, and I recently was associated with a religious organization, because I like the people. I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
And now I know why, because based on some experiences I had. But it's interesting how a lot of these religions, especially Christianity, I can't speak of the other ones because I wasn't involved with them. But when I dealt with Buddhists, Muslims, or Hindus, they never were judgmental. Only ones that were judgmentals that I came across were Christians. And it's interesting how everything gets put under witchcraft. Everything you just explained, that's witchcraft. Anything that's not understood, anything spiritual that happens, it's always deemed as witchcraft. And I think people get suppressed with that term in itself and saying that everything is witchcraft, and then relying more cardinally on books for a spiritual experience or for a relationship with the divine creator.
100%.
Which to me is insane, but that's the world we live in. There's 3 billion people like that. Which I like to call robot consciousness. Those are the robot conscious people. The people that are stuck in the matrix, the ones that don't want to be unplugged. And programs.
And the reality is, going back to, just the whole, Christianity thing, it's kind of, that takes me back to like, also just my gratitude with like the scariest thing that you can go through as a child, right? For me, is seeing things that are terrifying to you that no one else can see. But what's even scarier is when people say it's something demonic. But then what's even scarier than those two things are people who don't even believe that you're seeing anything. And I always say that's important because, my mother, for example, is very Christian. She always would tell me to like follow my gut, follow what I feel and hear, follow my heart, like, whatever that's telling you, like, let's try to find God and what's going on. And she also believed what I would say, right? And that's a second problem within the society. When you said robots, you kind of reminded me of that. is people who subscribe to reality that's given to them, which is, if they're not in a religion, or they could be in a religion, it's just that anything related to any spiritual concept is not real. If somebody is experiencing something spiritual, it's fake. They're hallucinating.
Yes.
Right. And so as a kid, that's terrifying, because I'm like, I know I'm seeing this, I'm experiencing this, but you're telling me that it's just my imagination and it's not real. You get what I'm saying? And that is terrifying, because now you're isolated, right?
Yes.
So
I just did an episode with my friend called "We're Here to Break the Spell of Mad Men," based on this counsel that she had with these Hebrew Israelites / Christians. And they were trying to make her think that her spiritual experience with the divine creator was something of witchcraft, or not what she thought it was, or something that she conjured up in her own mind. And it was just, it was sad to see that happen to her, but it just allowed her to see that she's not supposed to be in these types of groups. And that was the divine creator letting her know that. Let's start with the introduction to what we're discussing here today. So we're going to explore the concept of living in a matrix, challenging the conventional understanding of reality. And our reality is examined as a construct influenced by collective beliefs, expectations, and desires. So that's what a lot of your book covers. Before we even get into the book, there's one question that I have. What compelled you to get into philosophy?
Oh man, just philosophy. So, kind of like what I just as I gave my mother tons of credit for just being open, allowing me to just tell me to spiritually follow, what I felt like God was telling me. My father would allow me to have these conversations. So when I came, first of all, before I even go there, I was in high school. Since I was a little kid, my brain was always like I had these questions. Let's just say that, right? I'm in the house, my mother gave me a robot. I never forgot. She gave me a robot. I was like in kindergarten, and I looked at this robot, and then I looked around. Sounds hilarious. I looked around and I wondered, I'm like, how do I know everybody's not a robot but me, right? I remember going to my grandmother's Catholic church and them talking about God is outside of time. And, I remember literally crying because I was trying to figure out, I'm like 5 years old, 6 years old, but I'm trying to figure out, how can God be outside of time? Like, what is eternity? My brain is trying to figure this out. And I'm having such a hard time because, again, I don't have necessarily the information. I have the questions. And I was in so much pain. I'm like crying because I'm so frustrated. And then, so I said all that because through my life, I had these really deep questions at a very young age. And I thought that there was something wrong with my brain. Literally, by middle school, I thought that something is wrong. Something happened. I was asking my parents if they dropped me on my head. Like I was very much concerned about my brain, because I'm like, how can people not ask? Why am I weird for asking these questions? Why aren't people asking these questions? There must be something wrong with my brain. Why can't I just think normal? Unfortunately, that was my consciousness in middle school, right? In middle school, you really want to be like your peers. And so I get to high school, and this is when everything changes for me. I'm like senior year. I'm in the guidance counselor office. She's like, you want to take psychology or philosophy? I'm like, well, what's philosophy? I have never heard of this word. I don't know what is philosophy. She's like, yeah, it's a class where you get to question everything. Like they question the mind and the body. They question the existence. What is God? Is God real? And I'm like, wait a second. There's a class where they're just asking these questions where you can get an A if you're just thinking about these things. She's like, yeah, it's about critical thinking. I'm like, what? Like, this was mind blowing. I went into this class. It was Mr. Puderbach, and the class was so awesome for me. It was my first class that I was considered intelligent in, by the way. So it was a big deal for me. And so I decided I wanted to go to college and major in philosophy and religion. And I was blown away that you could even do that. I'm like, this is all I do in my free time anyway. And so that's how I got into philosophy, just learning. And where my father comes into it is when I was in college, just learning, brother. I was just learning, like outside of the classes. I'm reading the Bible. I'm reading the Torah. I'm reading the Quran. I'm reading the Hindu text, what do they call it? The
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, the Vita. Thank you. And so, I'm going through all these texts. I'm the Eightfold Paths. And so I'm coming home with some questions. this is freshman year. I'm coming home and people were so angry at me. I had no idea, man. I was so excited to bring all this information back to my family who I perceive to be intellectuals. So I'm coming back. I'm like, man, they're going to love this stuff. Man, was I so very wrong? They did not want to hear any of this.
Right.
But my father was the only one who would allow me to talk about these topics with him. And so I always give him credit. I give my mother credit. Spiritually, I give my father credit in that aspect because we could talk about politics, philosophy, anything. And my father would entertain it and he would talk about it and he'd be okay with questioning it all. And it kept me sane when I was in college because I had all these things I wanted to talk about. So that's how I got into philosophy, you know.
It's interesting how the people that you think are intellectuals are so far from it.
Oh, yeah.
And then the ones you think that are not are so close to it.
Oh, that's
the ones that you think are simple-minded
are
closer to being intellectually inclined.
Oh, yeah.
And the ones that speak articulately and, you know, come off as knowing so much, they're so far from that.
Oh, yeah. Happens all the time, you know.
So my first question for you, in regards to this intro, to the things that you bring out in this book, how does the concept of a matrix as discussed in your book challenge your current understanding, or let's go with your current understanding of reality?
Yeah. So when I first was just getting into, I guess, the Matrix, right? Originally, like a lot of people, I thought that the Matrix was a computer simulation. And I was convinced for a long time that we were all living inside of a very advanced computer, which, by the way, just to let everybody know who watch, I always keep a small, thing in the back of my head that says you could be wrong because it's the only way I can learn more. But at the time, this is what I believe. And what happened was, as I was understanding more about what a matrix is, and it's always hard to talk about these things because I'm given these things, and then I have to kind of, remember Alan Watts was the first one to tell me that, like, words are useful, but they're a terrible way to understand reality, right? And that's what it comes down to. So I'll tell you first that that's what I thought the Matrix was. Now, what happened was I realized something. I was given this information all at once about the world and that we are living within something that is terribly wrong. I feel like everybody kind of knows that deep down inside. One, the Matrix, for everybody watching, does not have to be a computer simulation. The Matrix really comes from, you've heard me say this in my videos probably tons of times, comes from the word mater, which means womb. And so it is a feminine concept. The matrix is a womb. A matrix is just a medium or structure in which something develops in. That is all a matrix is. So you'll see matrix in math. You'll see matrix in linguistics. You'll see matrix in, social studies. You'll see matrix in everything because everything that is comes from a medium or structure in which it developed in. So it all comes from something that develops it. And this goes all the way back to the creation of the universe. This is just a law. If you look around in nature, everything must come through a feminine principle, which is the womb. Now, what we call spirit, like when I say spirit, most people are thinking of a ghost. A ghost is not a spirit is not a ghost. And when I say a spirit isn't a ghost and a ghost isn't a spirit, I'm more so talking about the origin of these words and the origin of understanding amongst people who were indigenous, right? Right. So a spirit didn't have to be somebody who died in order to be a spirit. In fact, we kind of know this when we talk, when we use our language, we say school spirit. We'd be like, I feel this person's spirit. Man, you have a large spirit. A spirit is not something that has to be dead. In fact, a spirit is normally resembling more of like the living energy of something. In fact, it's normally what a spirit is. And so something that is inanimate can have a spirit. When I walk into a school, I kind of feel it. If I'm in a school, especially in the daytime, I can feel the spirit of a school. You walk through a school in the inner city that everybody's depressed and struggling, including the teachers and the students, and you walk through a spirit that is very proud and happy and has all the financial backing and everybody feels like they got what they need, it's going to feel a little different in walking through the halls. And that's what we call the school spirit. So I said it to say there's spirits across reality, right? Now, I don't want people focusing on whether the spirits are conscious or unconscious. Doesn't matter, right? A spirit could be unconscious. Something could be what you call unconscious. I truly believe that everything just has different kinds of consciousness, but something can be what you consider unconscious and still can do more than you can do. The earth creates life all the time. The earth creates things that scientists who are conscious cannot create, and yet they believe that it's unconscious. So things that we consider unconscious are sometimes even better at doing what we can do with our own consciousness and intellect. So I don't want people to focus on that when it comes to a spirit, right? But even when you hear, like, if everybody goes back and watched, I forget that Christmas movie where it had the Scrooge or whatever, but he would say, I am the spirit of this person, the first one who visited him, his old friend or whatever. I am the spirit of this person. They normally wouldn't even say, I am this person. I am this person's spirit. And so just to further break that down before I go further into the matrix, when somebody says a house is haunted, again, I want to remove the consciousness from the ghost and the spirit stuff. Just a haunted house. Go and get somebody to stop the haunting of the house. I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to say, where's all this person? Who was this person who died in this house? Okay, it was this person. Where are their belongings? Where did they stay at? They go into the room. They take out all the things out of the room. They say, you got to get rid of this. They go in and they find all the things. I mean, they even find stuff that they might have scratched. I mean, lipstick that might have been left over by this person, smells, incense. And then they go through the house. After they take all the things out, they clean the house. Then after they clean the house, they go in with new smells. And this is how they purge the house, right? This is deep, because a spirit is a pattern or a personality. And so when you step into a house, right, even if the person died, just the smell of that person, just the image of that person invokes the spirit of that person's energy and feeling. And so if that person, for example, is somebody that you know and that you knew and that you loved, it might actually be a good feeling for you. You might feel their presence, like, man, they're here. I love smelling this cologne they used to wear, this fragrance they used to have, because I feel them here and now I can sleep peacefully at night. But if it's a stranger that you did not know, it feels like there's somebody in your house who you do not know, and now you are creeped out. Now it's unsettling, right? And so that is a spirit. And the only way that you can get the spirit out is by taking all the things that you associate with that spirit. Now, all of that to say that we have a misunderstanding about spirits is what I'm trying to say. And what some people call archetypes, right? Or an archetype, however you pronounce it, the great mother, the great devourer, the tyrannical father. All these archetypes exist through every culture. These gods, these angels, these spirits exist in every culture. Cultures that never interact with one another will find the same exact spirit on all levels. We can find them in movies. The great father is Mufasa, literally. And he feels like God, because a lot of times God in the masculine is presented as the great father. And that's why people call him the father, right? Yeah. And so the great mother is the ultimate matrix, what you will call the great mother that birthed, people say that birthed the universe, that birthed everything into existence. But then you have the shadow of that mother. Every pyramid structure, if the sun is hidden correctly, is going to create two different shadows. And so of the great king, the great father, the great king is going to have two shadows, Scar and Simba. Scar is the tyrannical shadow, right? And Simba, before he accepted who he was, is the cowardly prince, the one who knows that he should be this person, but refuses to be that person because he doesn't want the responsibility. And so we see these spirits in people every day in our life, the great mother. So the great mother is the sustainer, the medium or structure in which develops you so that you can be free and independent. The great devourer is the matrix in which we live in today. The great devourer does the inverse. She is going to develop you so that she can keep you to herself, so that she can take from you. She's going to keep you in a domesticated or an infantile state, so she can constantly build and take from you, so she can expand out while you remain the same, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We know people like this, but we also know systems like this. And so civilization itself is the matrix we live in that is ultimately destroying humanity. But at the same time, if you notice, the weaker we get, the more advanced civilization gets and the more it spreads out. So that, I know that was a long explanation.
No, hey, there's so much that came to mind, and I want to interrupt you, but I mean, we live in a world of duality. Yes. So you always see in the movies, the devil's on the left and the angels on the right. And I always equate that to the higher self and the ego.
Yes, yes.
Right. And also too, when you were giving this breakdown, I couldn't help but to think about the Bible, because I feel like the way the Bible was constructed, it's a bunch of books manipulated from ancient texts to fit a certain structure and mindset. And in that mindset, and I've seen it even with the church that I was in, that it's a mindset that keeps the power of the divine creator outside of yourself. Yeah. So instead of you looking at everything that is and ever will be and seeing the power from within, you see yourself as a filthy rag. You see yourself as less than, as a sinner,
Yeah.
as somebody who has to constantly repent, as somebody that has to ask for forgiveness when you did nothing wrong.
100%.
So it takes the power away from you.
100%.
And it gives it to some imaginary thing that you
Yep.
will never,
Yep.
ever find.
Yep.
And that's how I see religion, where it keeps you suppressed from your true self
And
being the one with the creator of all.
I got to add to that because I know we're still in the matrix, but I got to add to that. And people are going to see this kind of start manifesting in future books without spoiling anything, because they're all of them are pre-written in a way, because they're all given to me. But when people talk about the Bible, and this people, my latest videos have kind of been harking on this a bit. They really do not understand, right? That there are two things going on here. Okay, there's one thing that transcends us and one thing that does not. So the part that does not transcend us is that humans are petty or can be petty,
Right?
and humans will do things with their own interest. And so when you're putting together a book, right, it can start as I'll use my books as a reference. So let's say people are still talking about this book thousands of years from now. But let's say that the Matrix wins. And so when we're not using FFFHAMS, somehow the Matrix won. People will twist everything in that book to fit whatever they needed to fit while they're talking. You get what I'm saying? People,
I know exactly what you mean.
People will cross things out. People will take out pages and put in they will do whatever they take. And then people will know that they have done that to the book, but because they were raised in that interpretation of the book, will defend the edited version. So that's the first level. And it hurts people to learn that about the Bible because it's so dear to a lot of us who grow up with it as this book has the answers to everything. And no matter what problems you have, you can go into this thing but that's because we don't understand the history of it. So that's one level of it. But the other level is that, again, when we talk about spirits do communicate with people. And what I mean is abstract things do have bearing into our reality. And so some people can talk to abstract things in their dreams. And this is why I always say, we got to stop saying that dreams are fake. I used to challenge this philosophy class all the time. I'm like, what proof do you have that the Tyrannosaurus Rex that I've seen in my dream is not real? And if you said it is in my brain, can you open up my brain while I'm dreaming and show me exactly where this T-Rex is located, right? Because you can't. And so it's a weird thing for us to say that dreams are fake, because our ancestors used dreams to talk to spirits and to our ancestors and to gods and deities and to the Most High. So this is important. And most people who we consider prophets of the past will tell you that I got that through a dream or through astral projection, or all these things that are considered bad today or fake, astral projection, or through, and I don't want to go too deep into herbs and plants, but through eating certain herbs and plants, to the point in which there are certain plants that people consume, and I'm sure you know this, they will see the same deity every time. Strange stuff. Same plant will show them the same deity. And no matter what cultural belief you have, everybody can come in. Some people probably already realize who are watching this later, I'm talking about ayahuasca, but no matter where you go on the planet, where you come from, people will take this thing and they all report the same experience. Now, no matter what you think about that goddess and deity, none of that matters to the point that I'm making. The point is that spirits or abstract entities, what I like to call them, that exist on other realms, do have bearing into our timeline, our history. And I say that to say that this is where we're going to combine the universalness of the Bible with the pettiness of humans. And this is dangerous. So when you have spirits, right, who we call gods, Eloheem, whatever you want to call them, that are not the Most High, right, that are communicating with people, and people are writing these things down, right? Like Yahweh is one of these beings. And I don't want to offend anybody watching this. I know Yahweh is very dear to people's hearts, but Yahweh is a separate entity from El Elyon. And if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, they make this very clear. This is made extremely clear, and it hurts people's feelings all the time. But you have one spirit who is Adonai, or Yahweh, and he's very clear about who he is as a spirit, by the way. Anybody reads the Old Testament, he's not parsing words with anybody. He tells you over and over who he is. I am a God of war. I am a jealous God. I am here to take all the other gods down. I believe that I should have rule over the other humans. Now, this is not me talking about Yahweh as a conscious entity again, as I'm not going into that. We're going to put that to the side when we talk about these.
Weird, because I was going to say, it's already been proven that Yahweh was a flesh-breathing man.
Yes.
That was also in Leo, and Leo was given many different names.
This is important because so the manifestation, I'm going to say that because now we're going to go even deeper now. now. I was trying not to go too deep, but we're going to go deeper. So things manifest through different levels, right? So you'll find Yeshua or Yashu, Jesus of Nazareth, these type of entities, you'll find them throughout history. And you'll find that story throughout history that's very similar. I mean, all the way up into, like, I could literally bring up historical character people who've recently existed, like Malcolm X, and show you literal things that are similar in life. I'll just give you an example. Malcolm X came from a tradition of people who he later rejected, right? This is a common story. He learns through his alignment. He's in this tradition. He comes out, he's like, man, I'm just not so sure if that's the way. He starts teaching a different way, right? The powers that be perceive him as a threat. Remember, the FBI, if anybody didn't see it, the FBI is called, can't remember, I forgot what it's called, but it's a document. COINTELPRO. Right. And it said that they wanted to stop the rise of the next Black Messiah. Can't make this stuff up. This is what they wrote. They identify. And
one more other thing too, don't forget that the antagonist, which would be J. Edgar Hoover in this case, there's always an antagonist. There's always somebody that's the shadow.
Exactly. And they identified Malcolm was this guy, right? They looked at us, Malcolm's that guy, right? Now, everybody's debating whether it was the FBI, nation, and I always say it was all of them, okay? Everybody was working in cohesion. Just like if we go back and read the story of Yahshua, everybody said, oh, it was the Jewish elites. Oh, it was Rome.
The Pharisees, right?
It's the Pharisees. They're working in cohesion, people. These people are working, these elitists are working together, all right? And then, but a mistake is made. They murder the person, but accidentally create something greater. If Malcolm X, I always contend this, if Malcolm X was not murdered, he would not be, I say the same thing about Tupac, by the way, he would not be as big as he is today. Right. And a lot of these evil people make the big mistake, right? Because when somebody has a spirit of something, and that goes back to the spirit, and you kill them, you release it, right? As soon as you murder them, you have now released it. And the dangerous thing when it comes to lead about spirits is once you let the spirit out, you can't put it back in the bottle, right? They say once the genie's out of the bottle, it's out of the bottle, baby. There's no putting Malcolm X. Now we can make Malcolm X whatever we want. People make Malcolm X things, and I love Malcolm X, but we make him things that he wasn't. Just like people make Tupac things that he wasn't. Why? Because now it's the spirit. The spirit is subjective. I can make the spirit whatever I want. I can call it this, I can call it that. So when it goes back to Yahweh, right, is that you have this person who has this spirit, right? Now I'm not going to go too deep into the Sumerians and Anu and Lil, so I'm not going to go too deep into it because that would take a long time as well. But
we can have you come back and we can discuss.
Yeah, we can go. But you have these spirits, right? And so Yahweh makes it very clear, again, who he is. He is not parse words. And so what you have is in the text, because what they did, and as you know, they took all these different names, El Elyon, Elohim, Yahweh, El Shaddai. I mean, I can go on. And they just said, we're just going to take all these names. We're going to put G-O-D. We're going to put G-O-D.
And take the S off.
Yes. And this is a big problem because now I have to try to make sense of entities who have different perspectives, who have different practices, different actions. And I got to try to make them all the same person saying the same thing. And they're not, because they're not the same entities. And so, I just wanted to hit on that. You know, when people bring up the Bible, is that it's way, it's parts of it that does transcend. Like I said, El Elyon, the Most High, you can find that concept of God throughout almost the entire world. Native Americans, indigenous people, hunter-gatherers. So you'll find things like that transcend, and stories transcend us. We don't know that, but we create these stories, that these stories kind of create us as well. So yeah, I just wanted to hit that. That was another long rant, but I just wanted to hit on that.
A lot of people that are studying now starting to realize that Amenhotep brought in monotheism. And then you say, well, why do you say amen at the end of prayer? Because it comes from that man that brought in this one way of seeing
Akhenaten.
Just the one way of worship, so to speak. And bringing it all into one. It was what's interesting, and I wanted to bring it up before. It's interesting how people take their books like the Bible and they will justify their behavior by manipulating a scripture within that Bible. And a perfect example, I had a situation where I was talking to someone one time and I was talking to them about how sodomy is not really a good thing, where it's like, you know, that your penis is not meant to go into that hole, so to speak. That's not what it's meant for. That's an exit, right? So they basically brought out a scripture about how what you do with your wife behind closed doors is your business. You know what I mean? To justify the behavior. And I see that a lot with people in religion, is their behavior will be something in error, but they'll bring you out a scripture and interpret it to justify the behavior as ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Well, it could be even
100%.
killing somebody, chopping somebody's head off, right? But
yeah, 100%. I mean, that's done often.
Yeah,
that was done throughout history. They looked in and said, you know what, we can find some backing to go ahead and kill these people over here. So yeah, that was done often. You know, and people have a hard time. By the way, my favorite book of all time is Genesis. You know, and people find it ironic. I love the book, right? I've read the book so many times, and I love it not because I think everything inside of it is true, because I know it's not. I know how humans work. Yeah. What I love about it, right? Because again, stories. There are parts of the Bible that, of course, listen. There are parts about Star Wars story that transcends humanity, and what I mean is like there's stories that just will always be told. There are stories that are in us. There are stories that you can find within the animal kingdom, right? There are certain stories that just transcend. So I just want people to know that's what I'm saying when I talk about Genesis. That there are stories in there that's just always going to transcend, that you're going to find in different cultures.
Well, that's what George Lucas did. The whole Star Wars thing is basically the Bible, the Nag Hammadi, the Bhagavad Gita, and other ancient texts like Divine from stories. Thought, like even Billy Carson. I don't know if you follow him with the Emerald Tablets. These are ancient stories that these people know about, and they introduce it in a different way.
Yes, and that's why. But that's why they resonate, and that's the point. Right. The point that I always try to tell people is like at the same time, because when I first learned everything I learned about the editing of the Bible, I was ready to throw the whole thing away. I hated it, so angry. But what I try to tell people who get angry about this new information, that this thing has been heavily edited, and that kings have largely influenced this, and especially when you go into the after the Catholics, Roman Church is established, but at the same time, just like I could say about the other divine texts within the world, or the orally passed down mythologies that hunter-gatherers still pass on. These stories do not throw them out because they might not be literally true. One of the biggest problems is, and this happened in Christian history, by the way, when the Catholics was just, and they still do it. When I say Catholics, by the way, I mean the Catholic elites. I try not to merged the everyday people with the elitists at the top of any group. And I believe that we do this specifically with history, about like European history. And so I'm really big on like calling out the elitists and not the everyday people who were also subjugated and oppressed along with the elitists. But the Catholics, they were hoarding information. And so when, and anybody knows the history of Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but, Martin Luther, pretty much going to war with the Catholic Church because they were so corrupt. One of the worst things that happened from that movement with Martin Luther was that he literally, ironically, changed history because the Catholic Church used the vagueness of the text to make you do whatever, to give them power. He went the exact opposite route, which I also disagree with, is reading it all as literal. And this actually changed the way that we all started to read. No one prior to this time, almost no one would read a story, a divine story, and try to make it fit exact literal history. Almost no one would do that. Almost no one would read the story of the Garden of Eden and think that two people ate an actual fruit and they were kicked out of a specific Garden of Eden because they ate of it one. Nobody would actually believe that at the time. But because of the corruption from the Catholic Church, they said, listen, we're just going to read it for what it is so that no one could ever tell us that actually you're reading this wrong. It actually means this. And so when we talk about oral traditional stories, we have to understand that there's deeper things within them that transcend us. And that's why I like stories like Genesis, is because I can still read them. And because I'm not trying to read it as a literal story about two people populating the entire planet. No offense to anybody who does believe that, by the way. We all got our own beliefs. But, no offense.
That doesn't make sense. But if they want to believe it.
Yeah, you want to believe it, believe it. But when you don't take it literally, is what I encourage everybody, then you can really start learning.
Right.
Start learning,
That's it. See, and that's if they choose to. Just like if somebody chooses to get your book, they have to make the choice. They have to be ready to receive the information. I think that's the biggest part when it comes to spirituality. Is that certain people that are ready to be unplugged, and there's just certain people that are not, and they're going to
Yeah.
stay plugged into that matrix, which goes into my next question. And before we do that too, I was just going to say, like, these people that get killed, that word martyrism, they become a martyr.
Mhm.
And when you were talking about releasing that spirit and it can't no longer be contained, there's so many people that get martyred, just like a
Yes.
Tupac.
Yes,
Right? And
100%.
it's like, and I wasn't a big Tupac fan. I liked some of his music, some of it, especially that song from Above the Rim. I forgot what it's called. That was one of my favorites. But I was like, I always said, like, this dude was very egoic. Like, he's a nice person to be around. If I know people that knew him, wasn't a nice person to be around. And it's like, we glorify these people that are really not that good. Like, if you was around them, you really wouldn't like them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that happens a lot
because that's the world we live in. But going back to my question, my next question is: in what ways do you see the influence of collective beliefs shaping the world around you and around us?
Yeah, so that goes back into what the matrix actually is, right? So we think this is part of the mythology that we have today. Every group of people, every society has a mythology, but they don't know it's a mythology at the time. So one of the mythologies we hold dear is that our beliefs aren't real, right? That our beliefs don't exist anywhere but our mind, and that our mind is somehow separate from the rest of the universe, which is a very strange belief, but nonetheless, we have it. The reality is, just as people say words affect reality itself, observation affects reality itself, beliefs affect reality, and you can become a prisoner within a belief. And I'll give you an example. When I was teaching in the inner cities before, I had my own businesses and writing books, I was a teacher. I taught for about 5-6 years, and mostly in the inner city schools. When I tell you that outside of school, some of these kids never leave their block, that is not an exaggeration. I mean, you know about this, right? That's not an exaggeration. When I tell you that there are some adults who have never left their neighborhood, their city, that is not an exaggeration.
It's like that in Staten Island. So you have a lot of people that live within Staten Island, on the island, that never even been to Manhattan.
Yeah.
And they're 40 years old.
That's what I'm saying. And what happens is, and they can't see it, by the way, not all beliefs are conscious. And that's a really important thing to say. But they have a set of beliefs that are not allowing them to leave. They have a set of beliefs that is not going to allow them. And when you talk to them, it's almost like talking to a robot. And robot
consciousness.
Yeah, it's almost like talking to a robot. You're like, hey man, why don't you go out? It's like there's something. If anybody ever watched Westworld, did you ever watch Westworld, the first season?
Oh, love Westworld. Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't like the third season. I wasn't able to finish it. But the first and second season for me, man, was like, I was so obsessed with that show. And the first season was like mind blowing, man.
Very mind blowing.
Oh my God. But anyway, I can talk about that. But if you remember in that show, if you tried to show the robots like a picture of the outside world, their brain couldn't comprehend it. They would find something to explain it away with, right? And it's because they have a set of beliefs. They call it programming. I'm gonna call it belief, right? And so those beliefs become a cage. And what the Matrix is so good at doing, by the way, the Matrix works independently of us at this point. And this goes back again into every spirit wants to manifest. Everything wants to, first of all, not just spirits, everything ever wants to manifest, even if it's not conscious. It wants to manifest. It's just a part of being. Everything wants to come into some sort of being. It's just the way it is. In this Matrix, people, I'm telling you, and this is where it sounds spooky for people, this spirit wants to be here, and it is here. But the way that it does it is so intricate, right? And I don't want to make him sound like he's saying things. He's not Richard Dawkins. He's not saying what I'm saying, but he talks about memes, like what a meme is. A meme, or now a meme is kind of like a joke, but a meme this term was created by him. And it just was a social or a non-biological form of a gene. So he was trying to explain how certain ideas will spread and grow and evolve, even though they have no biological component. They are somehow acting like an organism in a way they are interfacing with reality. And so he said, I can't call it a gene because it's not biological, so we're going to call them memes. And this, what we call civilization, has figured this thing out so well that it's even bypassed that. So originally a society could only grow and evolve if it had the best memes, the best ideas, if it was truly the best. Civilization realized, no, we're going to bypass all that. In fact, instead of going, and we see this in our actual world now on the internet, instead of going to war with you on ideas, I'll just destroy you. I'll just destroy you. I don't have to contend with whether or not you have a better system. I will decimate you. And now today we decide what is best. Again, going back to the Yahweh Yahweh spirit, and the spirit that people believed, and also Baal, what people believed at the time is whoever won the war had the best God, bruh. Forget what you believe and think. If we win, we got the best ideas, to the point in which we literally call ourselves more advanced, not based off of the ideas of a culture, the health of a culture, but over who can win in battle. We literally call indigenous people, it hurts my soul when we talk about the past of what happened in the Americas to the people in the islands, right? To the indigenous people. We say that, man, they were just going against a more advanced people. Oh, I hate it. Oh, it burns my soul when I hear people say it. Because what they mean to say is, in reality, they were going against a people who just didn't care and would kill them, without a care in the world. And so going back to what I'm saying about the Matrix is the Matrix bypassed a lot of things that old systems would have to go by. And so when it comes to our reality is something that's fake. We see this going on today in our world, and people can relate to this. Something that we know is not real. What the Matrix will do is say, yeah, I know this thing isn't real. What I'm going to do is, and I know you don't want to abide by this because you know it's not real, but I am going to give you real consequences for not acknowledging this thing as being real. Like property isn't real. The earth belongs to everybody, right? So what does the Matrix do to get everybody on board? If you do not pay this, if you do not pay that, then you will not have it. Now what's real? Now you tell me what's real. So I always say the hood is the realest part of the Matrix. If you want to see how the civilization looks, go to the slums of every civilization, because it can only exist by these places, these blocks of devastation being there. That's how everybody gets rich in the first place. That's how these places stay up. People say, why don't they go and fix the hood? Because it'll destroy everything. Why don't they make everybody rich? Because because the Matrix can only exist with it being like that. So the people in these neighborhoods, they have to have certain belief systems in order for the Matrix to run. They have to have certain belief systems. They have to believe that there's no way out. They have to believe that this is the only way. They have to believe, in fact, that if someone tells them another way out, if somebody finds a way out, and this is the scariest thing, that person's a sellout. He found a way out. Oh, that's because he's working with the devil. I mean, I've heard people say things like this.
Yeah, plenty of times.
And so that's what I mean by the belief,
right,
is what the Matrix used to trap you, is the beliefs itself. And so beliefs are more effective. And my last example, before we move on about that, my last example would be that when we talk about escaping things, if I put you behind real actual bars, right, your mind is going to be on escaping all the time. If I actually go and take someone's freedom, right, then they're going to fight. Humans are meant to be free. They're going to fight for their freedom tooth and nail. But if I can give you a belief that you should give me this freedom because I am going to make it, this is domestication, by the way, because if you relinquish your freedom, you'll be safer. You'll be healthier. These are all lies, by the way. You'll be safer. You'll be healthier. Life will be easier, right? Especially if I can use fear, if I can use fear, then you'll give me all your freedoms willingly. I don't got to take anything. And that type of prisoner and that type of slave will never break out because they don't want to be free.
You hit it on the money. Have you ever listened to any Alex Collier presentations?
No.
Definitely check him out.
You said his name was what?
Alex Collier. He, back in the 80s and in the 90s, he's a man who did a lot of presentations on his conversations with Andromedans that would come visit him.
Okay.
So he would get visited by these extraterrestrials from the Andromedan star system.
Okay.
And one was very short, named Deus, and there was another tall one. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I think I did actually a long time ago, maybe in high school, read about
the
this.
reason why I'm bringing it up, because what you were talking about as far as us having to pay to live, and that's part of the Matrix that we live in, that's devouring us, right?
Yep.
So one of the things he did was he gave a 3-hour presentation on economics to these beings. And then the one short being that is very wise said, I don't understand. He's like, well, what do you mean you don't understand? I just gave you a 3-hour presentation on this. He said, but I don't understand why you have to pay to live, why you have to pay to live on a planet that you was born on.
Yes.
And when I heard that when I was in my 30s, early 30s, it blew my mind. It stuck with me forever because I was like, yeah, why? Why do I got to pay to live on a planet that was given to me? I came here. It's been given to me. Why do I got to pay for this?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's very interesting. And by the way, I wasn't on my phone. I was pulling up certain segments of your book that I'm going to go into, stuff that I just read. And I was just like, wow. And I'm going to go into that in just a moment. But another thing I wanted to mention in regards to just the fear factor, that's what a lot of religion does.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you so scared that if you don't live your life a certain way, that there's going to be this man or person that you're going to have to answer to. And it's going to be like, I'm sending you to hell. You know, hell wasn't even a concept back in ancient times. It wasn't until later down the line. Oh, yeah. Right. And
you can't even find it in the Old Testament, like hell.
You can't, but now
you'll find
it's
like the
real.
underworld, but you won't find hell.
But you see, this is the thing where you were talking about beliefs, how beliefs are real. Because if you get enough people to believe in something, that perception becomes a reality.
Yep.
That's why you have a lot of people that have these near-death experiences. And they'd be like, oh, I went to hell and Satan was there sitting on a pile of gold looking at me, or I saw people screaming for their lives. And it's like, you created that hell within yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Your perception of yourself is the hell. And you just relived it once you left your body. Once that silver cord extends and you go into the astral plane, you're going to see things based on whatever your perception of your reality is.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's why you got to be careful on the things that you feed your mind.
Yes. And I keep saying, people, stop telling people that dreams are fake. One, just because you create, like, you know, the Matrix has been so good at just like destroying everything that we know about ourselves. You have the power to create an entire reality and you call it fake. Like, right? I used to lucid dream. You can create entire reality. You can do whatever you want in lucid dream. But we're like, yeah, it's fake though, because I made it. Because you made it, it's fake. Because you conjured it's fake. That's always, it's so strange. No, it's not fake. It's very real. And you have the power to create things that are very real. And like you said, be careful, because when you pass away, you know, I forget what people's it was. There's people who they spend all their time lucid dreaming because they truly believe that the dream world and the world when you die were connected. And so they said that their belief was that the worst thing that you could be when you die is unconscious. They said because it's just like when you're dreaming, you're leaving it up to chance whether you get into a nice dream or into a nightmare. Right. And the last place you want to be when you pass is into a nightmare you've created, but you don't know you created. You know, they said, you know, so they were really big on just becoming super aware of their dreams. And so that when they pass, they will be very aware of it and be able to control wherever place they were in upon their passing. So yeah, beliefs are so vital. And in fact, I mean, I've seen people in hell, you know, I'm like, you know, you don't gotta scare me with hell, with fire and brimstone. I've seen people in hell today, you know, I've seen people living in hell, you know, their own hell that they've constructed, you know, so.
Yeah, their own limitations. I mean, even the people that I was congregating with, it was brought out that I don't look at Christ as my Lord and Savior, right? And as soon as that was brought out, these people that said they loved me, cared about me, they ran from me like if I had the plague.
It's interesting.
You know, and it's just so interesting how this consciousness, what I call that robot consciousness, this program consciousness, that just by persons saying that they don't believe what you believe in, automatically you become exiled. And just like you know this in history, if I would have said that, let's say 200 or 300, 400 years ago, I would have been burned.
Oh yeah,
I'd have been dead. I would have been murdered in the worst, most horrific way, right?
Exactly.
But it's no different now, where even though they shun me, it is a form of killing me or trying to kill me, because now you look at me as separate from yourself, and that's where the ego comes in, because it's an egoic thought to be like, oh well, he doesn't believe this, so because these scriptures say this, and this is where the interpretation comes in. Because these scriptures say this, we can't deal with this brother no more. This brother's serving Satan. This brother's into witchcraft. He's this and that. And even though I can give two craps about what people think about me, because I already know what state of mind they're in, I looked at it as a blessing to be like, okay, this is why Source or the creator told me, like, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah. You thought you were supposed to be here, but you're not. And it was more of a blessing.
But the thing about that is, when it comes to people, is like, I have like literally three things to say real quick on that. Like one, like, I still cannot find, and I've challenged people to do this because in college I read the whole Bible. I read the whole Bible maybe two times, 2.5 times. I didn't finish it the last time I tried, but I cannot find where Yahshua or Jesus of Nazareth claims to be specifically God. And the reason why I always bring that up is, specifically God is in El Elyon, or the Most High. And the reason I bring that up is because they can't find it either. Now, I've found where he says, I'm one with the Father.
Well, the only way to the Father is through me. They use that scripture to try to reference that point.
But the thing about that is, if you read the rest of like both of those, but I'll use the I am one with the Father, right? I mean, if you read further into this, is how I tell people who haven't read it, because if you just go a little further, just keep reading. He says also, you talking to his followers, you should be one with me, like I am one with the Father. Meaning he's not like, so I never like to get too deep into, because I know they really don't care about what it says. That's what I realized. Like, you don't really care.
They don't.
I'm like, I felt like I wasted all this time reading the Bible because I thought people were going to care. And none of my at the time I considered myself Christian when I read the whole Bible.
Right.
And then I quickly realized no one cares what it says. So, I was just like, I care and you don't care. But then and I won't go into the third thing. I was just going to the second thing, just about religion. And I made a video about it a long time ago. But religion means to bind, and I feel like people know this. Religion means to bind, and so this is a good and a bad thing. Within this matrix, this civilization we live in, it's completely outside of our natural habitat. You'll go crazy in it because and it'll make you do crazy things. So I always liken it to I used to be a dog trainer, so I always liken it to dogs. And if anybody's ever had dogs, there's two types of dogs that you're gonna get. You're gonna get either the dog that just gets it. They just kind of get it. They understand they live in a world that's not like the world they're supposed to live in. Maybe that a wolf would live in. Like, there's cars in the street. You can get hit by a car, a bus. There's dog catchers. So they just understand it. Somehow they don't get captured by dog catchers. They can leave home. Sometimes they can come back. They don't get hit by cars. Sometimes they don't even leave the yard. They just understand the world. But then you have most dogs, meaning that if I do not put a leash on this dog, if I do not use an invisible fence on this dog, if I do not put up something to bind this dog, they're going to run into the street and they're going to get hit by a car, or they're going to go across the street. They're going to attack somebody's dog. They're going to act crazy, meaning that they need this form of bondage in order to act properly in the world in which they were not made to be in. And then you have dogs that just don't. They just for some reason, they just get it. They understand, if I walk into that street, I am going to die, right? They understand, if I attack that dog, I might go to somehow they just get it. And I believe humans are very similar. Because we're in this world that we're not made to live in, right? You have some humans who just cannot interact and interface with the world without some sort of religion, right? For some reason, they just cannot interface with this world without having it. And then you got some people, and it's like this in their kids. It's like, I just don't need it. You got it. You can have it. I don't need it. I don't need it to get what I need to get into this world. I found another way to get it. I can have my own relationship with God. I don't need a leash. I don't need, and that's, by the way, I'm not dissing religious people by saying that,
right?
But it's just, religion is a form of bondage. It's a form of parameters to put up, and hell is one of those parameters. Some people, unfortunately, because of this world and how it offers you to do all kind of the worst things in human nature to do, from becoming an alcoholic, an addict, from killing, murder. Some people need hell, unfortunately. It's terrible. Some people need hell as their leash to not act upon these things. And some people I don't really need hell to just be good, right? But some people do, and I'm not knocking them either. Some people need that, and so that's how I perceive it.
And even those people that I dealt with, I still got love for them. If they needed my help, I would be there for them present day.
Yeah, you're more Christ-like then.
Yeah, I've always been. That's what's crazy. That's ironic. I've always been as a kid. I've always been. I talked to a medium on my show, and she actually told me in private. She said that she saw Christ manifest within my face. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but when it comes to charity and compassion, I have it on steroids. Sometimes I used to think it was a weakness, but let me ask you this. This is a question I have for you. Can you reflect on a personal experience where you questioned your reality, and what was the outcome of that exploration?
All of this, So not to go into too much detail, and eventually I will in one of my books, but for a long time as a kid, I just had a being that just wanted to give me information. But because I was told to automatically perceive anything mysterious as like demons and stuff, I just ran from it my entire life. And eventually in college, going through my spiritual journey, I said, man, if I really believe that I'm one with God, then why am I so afraid? And so I just said, all right, I'm ready to listen. So I did. And right after that experience, I ain't gonna say what it was. I'm gonna keep that one to myself for now, keep it close to the vest, but I was able to do something. And it was only this one time in my life. It was extraordinary. Okay. It's pretty outstanding stuff. I was like, what? Now I've already experienced a bunch of weird stuff, but this one was just crazy. And I questioned for a second, I questioned my sanity because I brought somebody downstairs. I just say it was my sister. I couldn't believe I could do this. So watch this. Didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. So, but through the next couple of days, I had these experiences and I came to I said, okay, there's only two options here. Eloheem, there's only two options here. Either you are losing your mind or you are meant to do something pretty extraordinary. It's one or the other. Okay. And if I'm just being honest with everybody, I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I just knew off the bat. Like I was questioning my sanity for real, but I just embraced, who I was and what I was meant to do. And literally I was from that moment on, I was guided in my life in a way that I was not guided before. And literally without those experiences, there would be no FFFHAMS, there would be no first book, the second book, no philosophy of order. This all came from me just accepting, okay, this stuff is real. This is happening. All right. So it's time to embrace this. And there was ups and downs. It wasn't immediate, but eventually it led me here. So yeah, man, I questioned reality. And honestly, I think it's actually healthy for people to question their reality because the reality is you live within what we call civilization. And man, not to keep going back to the Matrix, but it's done such a good job of convincing you that a fictional made up mythology is real. Like what is our mythology? There are no gods. There are no supernatural anything. This is the mythology that everything that exists comes from dead things, that anything spiritual must be first looked upon as fake. And the only way that we can understand anything is through physical, empirical data. You will not understand the universe more from meditating. You will not understand the universe more through prayer. You will not understand the universe more through dreams and astral projection. You will not understand the universe more through herbs that we call drugs now. It's ironic because I haven't done any of these things, but DMT is just starting to be taken seriously. Why? Because the mythology that we have, that these things it's impossible for there to be an entity talking to you, brother. If you go and tell the average person, nah, man, I've had experiences with God and different entities, and I've experienced some things. Because of the mythos that we have, they will think that you are crazy, even if they believe in these things.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
That's what the elite structure of old when it comes to the Roman Catholic Church, what they did, when you talk about the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Carthage that you did a great presentation on, what did they do? They took out mysticism.
Oh, yeah.
Once you take mysticism, which, by the way, Christ was teaching nothing but mysticism because that's what he learned. But let's not go there. That's for another day. You take out mysticism and you got what you just explained. You got this cardinal mindset where it's like, I know that the dirt is dirt because I can touch it. You're imprisoned in this 5 sense reality. Oh yeah. And it keeps you completely limited, completely unaware of who and what you are and where you truly come from.
Oh yeah. That's a good mythology because it's so convincing, right? It's so convincing because what I have to do to really, I'll just give you an example. This is how good this mythos is, that when I used to debate with atheists, there was a time in my life, all I did was debate with atheists. That was like my thing on the internet. And this is both ways, but I'll just use the atheists for this example. Anytime I would tell them, this is how I would get them every time. They'd be like, God doesn't exist. I would say, which God? What do you mean? What do you mean, which God? God. Like, tell me what God you're talking about. I'm talking about the God of the Bible. Which God of the Bible? What God do you worship? I know many many gods. I worship the highest God, but are you talking about the Most High? Are you talking about the sun? Are you talking about the earth? Like, what are you talking about? Because different peoples have different gods. Some people's God is literally the forest in which they live in. So which God are you talking about? And so many atheists were puzzled. The reason why they were puzzled is because even though they don't believe in God, the mythos states there is only one God, right? The mythos states that there's only one God, and this is further, that is the only God worth talking about and debating. And I only bring that up because one of the greatest things that the great devourer is able to do is centralizing, right? One thing I could always say about, at least on Earth, I can't speak of every planet, but at least what the creator did on Earth. The creator has a huge bias for diversity, biodiversity. It wants a plethora of everything. The great devourer is the exact opposite. The great devourer wants everything centralized. Everything. I mean, your God must be centralized. Everybody must believe and think about the same God when we're talking about God. No, you cannot talk about nor think about nor mention any other deity ever. Don't do it. There is one, to the point that people have made Yahshua or Jesus of Nazareth a God, like literally God. Like everybody has to be made one central thing.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? Banks,
you hit
religion,
it right on the money.
Everything. So,
and it's funny because what's interesting about that in the church that I dealt with is that, and I've seen this with other churches, is that they deify this figure of Jesus Christ of Nazareth so much that sometimes they put this man before the Most High.
Oh yeah.
And I always said this thing. I said these things on my show about how you going to give your mother and father their name? How can I give?
I like that.
Like if I'm born, how can I name my father? My father already had a name.
I like that.
But that's what we do. Yeah. We give these names to where we come from, not even understanding. And that goes back to that robot consciousness that people say Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior, and they don't even know what Christ is.
No, they don't.
They don't even know about the sacred secretion through the vertebrae.
No. Nope.
They don't know about the 33 degrees to order in life.
Yep.
But I have another question for you, right? Because I know we're going to keep it under a certain time frame because I could talk to you for the next 7 hours.
Yeah, I said 2 hours, but we could go a little over because it's so good. It's
okay, cool, good. I'm glad you said that. Now, before I bring in some of these excerpts from your book that really just was just like, wow. I'm reading it, I was just like, wow. Before we get into that, I have another question for you. And this is going more into how we can reclaim our true selves, how we can break free from this matrix. So my question to you is, in what practical ways can individuals embark on a journey on self-discovery and spiritual awakening in their daily lives?
It's funny because I'm actually coming out with like this journal and this course for just, becoming your highest self. So I would say just quickly, just to sum up that lesson, it has to also do with the philosophy of order. So I think everybody needs to realize that you probably, I use the word probably because I do not know for sure. Right? I'm never going to act like I know things for 100% sure, but you probably live in a multiverse. You probably live in a place where there are many different versions of you and realities and universes, and studying quantum physics, without going too deep, a multiverse. Now, if this is the case, there are going to be 3 types of you throughout the universe, right? I'm just putting them into my own categorizations. There's the higher selves, because all these are relative technically. There's the neutral selves, and then there's the lower selves. Okay. All of them, right, are out there, right? All of them exist as long as they're possible. This is the rules of the multiverse. If it's possible, it's there. Okay. So now at the same time, the only way that you can meet your higher self is to become your higher self. The only way that you can meet your lower self is to become your lower self. And this is very important because just as they exist throughout the universe, they also exist within your mind. So all these different possibilities of you are already up here. And so through your life, you have to make a decision. Each decision is going to take you either closer to your higher self or closer to your lower self. Your lower self exists. Remember that. And because they're in the mind, like I said earlier in the interview, they all want to manifest, the ones in your mind. They want to be real. They all want to be here. So they are going to be telling you to do things. Now, as you know, it's easier to sink than to float. In other words, it's easier to go down than go up. And so there are less higher selves, and it's going to to be more lower selves because it's more probable that you're going to make the wrong decisions through life. So that means this, in a metaphorical way, they're going to be louder when they talk to you. They're going to be a lot louder. Your higher selves are not going to be as loud, but you're always going to be able to hear them, you know? And so I always say in everyday life, always move toward your higher self. You know who it is. You know who your higher self is. You know, people like to play dumb. I don't know. No, you know. But do you want to do it? It's harder. It might take more time, to reach that higher self that you look at. So look at that higher self, pick the one that you want to be, and then ask yourself, well, what would they be doing right now to get to that point? What did they do in their past to become who they are and start becoming that higher self? So that in a nutshell is one of the it's in the philosophy of order. And then to package that in to like FFFHAMS is that realize that within all the possibility of your higher selves, that some of them are unaccessible. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. This is important. So in the Western world, specifically in the matrix, the ego, what I like to call the false ego, the false self, as a true self is one with everything. But the false self, the ego, always wants to disconnect you from everything else. So even when we talk about higher selves, we first only think about one individual.
That's why it stands for edging God out or edging good out.
Yeah, I like that. And so there's higher selves. If you had that mentality of, I just want to be, let's say, the richest me. That's cool. That's fine. That's the highest self that you want to be. But understand that higher self might exist within a world where most people are their lower selves. So that means there's even higher places where the majority of people are their higher selves that you don't have access to because you're not helping other people come up as well. And you're not spreading the knowledge for other people to hold and to come up. But if you can get more people up with you, then you're accessing even higher selves, because we can all agree that it's better to be your higher selves with a bunch of people who are their higher selves than your higher self alone. So,
and that's what Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ or Yeshua was doing.
Yep. 100%.
And he had an order. That's a lot of people don't know, is that he was a Mason and he had an order. Yep. And you had to go through initiation to be in his church.
You're getting real deep into the initiation.
We'll talk about that. But I have another question for you because and also to kind of expound on what you were bringing out, what came to mind when you were talking about these three stages, I think, and I'll go in the order in which you presented it, is the future, present, and the past. And what people don't realize is that the future, the present, and the past are all happening in the present at once.
Yep.
And that, and just to ask you too, do you think that one of those practical ways in what you just brought out is meditation? Would you suggest that people meditate to get to that place?
I meditate, so I would suggest, I suggest two things, meditation and prayer. Pray while you meditate.
Right.
When I pray, I don't ask for anything, by the way. I thank for everything,
you're evoking it. You're evoking it, right? You're speaking it into existence as if it already happened and being grateful that it happened.
But
that's what I do.
Going back to what you said, if we just follow these steps, if all time has already happened,
right,
then
time is an illusion, right? I mean,
right?
There is no such thing as time. That's a construct in itself.
So if now, I try to separate the construct from what I call the entity of time, right? So like what I would call the entity of time is, so on another planet, if they're looking, let's say they're 1 million light years away. So they're looking back on the planet. They may be looking, I don't got the exact light years, by the way, for those watching, but let's say they're 1 million light years away and they're looking back on the planet. They're going to see the dinosaurs, right? They're going to see whatever was here 100 million years ago. Because now the reason why that's important is because that means that that's still happening, because we're both in now. The aliens on that planet and us right now, we're both in now.
Well, brother, the dinosaurs are still here physically.
Oh yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
If you go into the deep recesses of the Amazon jungle, there are dinosaurs.
Also, if you go into the Congo,
there's African tribes that can show you that, but you're gonna have to go through a lot of stuff to get there.
I can't pronounce his name, but he looks like a brontosaurus with sharp teeth, a little shorter, the one in the Congo. I used to do a lot of research on the dinosaurs still here. I mean, I don't want to get into how dinosaurs and everything, because I could get into dragons with people and dinosaurs, right? But and spells and how words control your reality, and that people really think that dragons don't exist when dragons just mean large serpent, and that we use words, they'll use words on you to again enforce their own mythology. So I'll create a dragon in Hollywood that is so fantastical that it cannot possibly exist within this version of reality, and then I'll tell you, and then I'll change words and I'll say, well, dragon now means a fire breathing entity that talks English and that's from from England and that flies in the air and hoards gold and loves gold, right? And it's like, bro, obviously. But dragons originally meant large serpent. So an anaconda originally was called a dragon. A large saltwater crocodile was originally called a dragon. When you dig up, the word dinosaur was a recent word created. Before then, if you would find those fossils in the ground, you would say, I have found a dragon, and you would not have been wrong at the time for saying that. And so they control our reality also by controlling words. But my main point about time was that they are looking in the past, even though they're in our now. Meaning, that's what they mean when they say the past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same exact time. The illusion is the way our brain sets it up as like the kind of a sequential, cause effect, when it's already there. Meaning, when you pray for things, literally when I pray to God, right? Because, and I don't got time to break it down now, my perspective on God, but I'll just start with the top perspective of God, because there's layers of God for me. The top perspective of God is the all, existence itself. There's nothing greater than existence. There's nothing that can be except for existence itself. That the all, what people call the all, the everything, all is within you, and it is out, is within, so that the all, right? I tell people that all your blessings, everything that you've ever prayed for has already been given to you. It has already been given to you, and I would say picture reality like you have a blindfold on and God has already given you all these things and you're just trying to fill it out and figure out where is it at. That's what you're really doing throughout life. It's already there. And that goes deeper into the story of the Garden of Eden and why I think it's so special, because if you really read it, and I'm sure you read in the book already how I break down the hunter-gatherers and Adam and Eve and everything. But if you look at the hunter-gatherers, right, their perspective today, the hunter-gatherers today, not the ones who are being oppressed or who are going into agriculture now, but you speak of the hunter-gatherers today and you ask them, if you go into India and you go into the Jawara tribe and you ask them, you say, hey, what do you want? Are there things you want? And hopefully they say, what could I ever want? The creator gave me everything, or God gave me everything. The forest gave me everything. The universe gave me everything. I want for nothing. I have everything I need,
which is in Genesis 1:29. Right? It's every seed bearing plant to use for what we need it for.
Exactly.
Desire.
I have all I need. I don't need anything. What has happened is the great devourer has so nothing can take things from you that is yours, right? Which everybody always says. So the only way that I can take it from you is by convincing you that you never had it in the first place. And then I put a price to it. Not only do you not have it, you have to pay for it if you want it. And then I create fake things to desire, things that really mean nothing. People are depressed because they don't have, a car. They don't have, so literally I've reconstructed an entire society based upon things you never needed. And so now we're all materialistic. And we're like, I want all these things.
Right.
I just want stuff. I want a Bugatti, because all the rappers are talking about Bugattis. I don't even know what a Bugatti is. I don't even see one, but I want it because the rich people got it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
right. And then they get it and they feel unfulfilled because it feels good for like a week or two or a month.
Exactly.
And the allure just fades away. And
the happiest people on the planet are hunter-gatherers. That doesn't disturb anybody. The happiest people on the planet, they went and they did, this is not speculation, they went and they did surveys. The happiest people on the planet are hunter-gatherers.
Right.
Right.
You're absolutely right about that. They tested out the actual frequencies of where these people live that are technically in Western culture considered poverty, third world countries. Mm-hmm. But the level of frequency and vibration was so much more intense on a vibratory level when it comes to positive energy compared to like if you go to like a place like New York City or a very affluent neighborhood or just America overall. Yep. The vibrational field is here. Yep. And then you go to some of these tribes and the vibrational field is all the way up here. Mm-hmm. That even when I had this happen with me when I used to live in Rockland County and I was renting out a house, people would come into my house and they would say, it feels different here. It feels peaceful. Yeah, I feel like nothing's going to go wrong here. I want to stay here. And then of course I'd be like, hey, you can stay for a while, but you got to go. But it's one of those things where it's what was resonating with me in my auric field. And one day I'll tell you how I got the name Aura when I was 15. But my auric field is emanating that positive stream of consciousness. Yeah. So when you step into that auric field, that's what you're going to feel. That's even awesome. When somebody that is not aware of conscious, they're still a sentient conscious being. So regardless, they're still operating off those principles, whether they want to believe it or not. Oh yeah. Another question that is similar to the last. Okay. But it's, and you can go as far as depth as you want to, but how do you envision a reality that is more aligned with our true selves steps, and what steps can you take or can we take to move towards that vision? And if you can give that vision, I guess, and this is what I'm just assuming, that you're going to go more into the hunt. We need to go back to the hunter-gatherers. We need to go back to being foragers. Forging our reality as hunter-gatherers. So if you can explain that to the audience.
So there's a really important part within FFFHAMS that says anti-fragile. And anti-fragility was what I always say order. Like if order is a spirit or a god, right? Then just saying hypothetically, then and it's always, contending with its twin, entropy, destruction. And every time, order builds something, entropy comes right back around and just knocks it over. So what's going to be the answer? The answer is to create something that gets more powerful over time with destruction. Something that, because you have fragile things. When you introduce entropy to something fragile, it breaks easy. You have robust things. You introduce like a rock or a mountain. You introduce entropy to it and it just stays relatively the same. But then you have biological creatures, which you introduce entropy to them. They adapt, they change, they become more powerful. They become more, they develop different kinds of consciousness and they find ways, and so that's anti-fragility, and so there are parts of this matrix. It creates entropy. It's just what it does. But we got to figure out, not only do we have to stay within our nature, which is to be a hunter-gatherer, but we also got to figure out what parts of that entropy makes us stronger, like what parts to take with us. For example, solar panels aren't bad, people. Wind turbines aren't bad. A lot of people think that I'm anti-technology, and I'm not at all. I'm not anti-technology, right? But I am anti-technology that is hurtful for humanity and the earth, right? Because we got to be here. Where are we going to be at? Where are we going to go? We got to take care of the earth. So any technology that's hurting the earth or is hurting humans, I'm not for it at all. And just like there's medicines, or herbs, I like to say, that are really good for you, that will do awesome things for you. And then there's some that are made so that people can make money, and you got to make a separation from them. They're not equivalents. And so a world in which we definitely are building what I call FFFHAMS across the planet, food, forest, foraging, hunting, anti-fragile modern societies. And so pretty much a technologically advanced hunter-gatherer society. And because one thing we need to realize, you cannot legislate behavior. This is one of the, principles in the philosophy of order. I learned this though as a school teacher. I can write all the rules I want on the board and say, do not do this. And if you do this, and I'm giving you a detention. This is legislating behavior. We do this in our society all the time. If you do what I tell you not to do, then I'm going to penalize you. And we have more prisoners for it, right? It doesn't really do anything. The only way that you can change behavior is by changing the system that you live in, right? And so what I realized teaching my students, these inner city kids, I'm talking about I'm talking about kids who will punch their teacher in the face. I'm talking about kids who will spit in your face. This is not these are the type of kids I'm talking about. I changed the system up in the classroom. I'm the best people I've ever come across in my life. Just changes their whole behavior. You just change the structure of it. And so a lot of people, you think you're acting a certain way. Like, I always say that we try to find a devil in every group of people, so, I don't want to get your YouTube channel, ticked right now, but there's a group of people on the planet. There's a group of elitist people on the planet who are definitely, behind a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? So, and they so happen to be in a certain ethnic group. Okay. So me and my brother, we have a lot of debates about this, right? The debate is that, and I don't want to misrepresent his perspective, but he believes, I have many brothers, y'all. So if you find one of my brothers, doesn't mean that's the one I'm talking about, but he believes that they are inherently evil, right? I don't believe that. I think, right, that if you put someone, I'm just going to give an example. If you put the average everyday person into a throne, you tell them that they are the greatest person in the universe and that everything revolves around them and they have the power to do anything they want, a lot of them are going to do bad things because systems change behavior. And so that is not the natural habitat of a human, by the way.
No, it's not.
Right? That is not the natural place for you to be at.
And by the way, just I want maybe you and I could do an episode. There's, I have a lot of titles for episodes, and I have an episode where I want to talk about how privilege poisons, which you're going into. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so what it does to you, it changes your behavior. So that goes all the way back to that. The reason why hunter-gatherers are so peaceful, are so happy. Well, most hunter-gatherers, by the way, some hunter-gatherers have been completely changed into violent beings because of what has happened to them. Like some of them in the Amazon, they'll kill you on sight. No questions asked. acts.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
For sure.
you do definitely have hunter-gatherers who are extremely violent, but most hunter-gatherers, the reason why they're so peaceful, the reason why they're so loving and caring and happy, there's not a genetic difference going on here. If you put them under a microscope, they're still the same as we are.
Right.
What's happening here is the system in which they live in, right? So people talk about equal rights between men and women. You cannot make people treat each other equally. What's happening with hunter-gatherers, the reason why they're egalitarians is because they both are equally contributing to the society. So if I am talking to somebody who I need just as much as they need me, I can't pretend, if we both know this, right? And we see this through our everyday interactions, I can't all of a sudden pretend like I run you, right? The women are the gatherer, and a lot of people for some reason hate the fact that women are gatherers, but not knowing that gathering is so vitally important. This is where all the herbs come from, the medicines come from, most of the food are vegetables and fruits and nuts that hunter-gatherers eat, by the way. And so these things are extremely important. And so I can't all of a sudden go to woman and say, you're less equal to me, I'm going to control where we go. I'm like, how are you going to control where we go? Do you know the plants like we know the plants? Do you know the fruit like we know the fruit? Do you know the best places to get the honey? Do you know how to detect the yams underneath the ground? Exactly where to dig? Come on, man. Just like a woman couldn't go to a hunter-gatherer and say, men, now we're going to have a matriarchal society and you're going to be under us and we're going to rule under you. He going to say, come on now. That's not realistic. Who going to protect you from the worst creatures? Who going to go and get the meat that you need and the bones? Who going to create, who going to do all this? Who going to do some of the heavy lifting that y'all could do, but you really don't want to do that, right? Who going to do all those things like that? Who's going to really protect you when some of these other creatures, like when these hyenas come by the way that we are, nobody going to die for you like we going to die for you. Come on, don't be silly, right? It would be silly. And for them, it is silly to do that because they know that they both equally need one another. But in the society in which we have now, which agricultural societies have done a good job of, and industrial societies have warped the relationship between genders to the point where it's almost unrecognizable, And so then you want people to act like that they're equals in fields in which you've made them unequal in, and then so now I have to try. Now, even though I don't feel like we don't even have to use gender. If we're at work and I know, and this happens all the time, there's people, supervisors, people above you at your job that are not your equal in intellect and are not your equal in what they're able to do in ability, but they're over you. And I have to act like that, no, like now I'm angry. Now I'm coming into work upset because now I got to listen to this guy who don't know what he's talking about. And his dad gave him this position. You feel me?
Yeah, now, that happens so much.
Yeah. Now I gotta, so I can't I can act like we're equal, but I won't feel that way because I know that we're not in this field. And so, when we get back to that, in our true nature and who we are, again, going back to the Garden of Eden, the one thing that bothers me the most about Abrahamic religions is, and I almost laugh at it. I'm like, y'all just are going to completely ignore the Garden of Eden forever. Nobody wants to restore the Garden of Eden. You just want to fall and stay fallen. No one's talking about the rise. Like, it's so confusing to me. I bring it up to people. I'm like, why don't you ever bring up the Garden of Eden? It's a fall. You have fallen. You're not supposed to subjugate women. It says that in the garden, in Genesis, it says that because you have eaten of this fruit, you will be beneath your man. You will be subjugated to your man, meaning that she's not supposed to be. It's a part of the fall. So it's a very interesting dynamic that I see in these religions get cherry picking. I'm like,
the way they treat women in Abrahamic religion is disgusting.
I'm like, so you're just going to partake in the fall. So you're just, you acknowledge that this is a part of the fall, but you're like, hey, we're just going to live in that because it's an excuse. And just to hit on that, not because I know you got more questions, but to hit on Eve is so important to this story because Adam and Eve, Adam means man or human, man, human, whatever. And Eve is life. So it's a story about human life, right? And what you have going on in the story about human life is telling you how humans went from hunter-gatherers being one with nature, respecting the one, the El Elyon and all that, to a descension of agriculture. And, the book goes into all this. But this is important because Eve, right? It says that Eve was taken from a rib of man. Now, this is really important why we got to read translations. And I know some people get mad at me. My family in Sumerian, who study Sumerian texts, get mad at me because they have the complete interpretation of taking a part of somebody's rib and creating a genetic clone. But I'm here to tell you, this is what was going on. So if you read the word they used, tesella, or I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but sella was the word they used for side. Everywhere else in the Old Testament that sella is used as an equal portion, an equal half of the other side of something. What happened was when they were reading this, right, the people who, again, we talk about this, people like to use about it, they'll change things up, they'll cross things out, they'll rewrite things because they're petty and they want to rule in the way they want to rule.
Right.
So they said, we cannot have this say that Eve is literally taking out of, is the other half of Adam. We cannot have that as an interpretation that women are meant to be an equal side of humanity.
Not a weaker vessel.
Yeah. So we have to make this the smallest possible side of man that we can possibly think of right now. And so they just decided to translate it as rib. And this is important because in egalitarian societies and hunter-gatherer societies, they'll tell you like the woman is equal to us. How am I going to subjugate? That doesn't make any sense. So we got to get back to that, but we can't get back to that from legislating things. We have to create a system to live within.
Right. And one thing as a kid, I was just like, I understand that women are more emotional than men. That yes. I do get. I've experienced it many of times. But what I never understood is how you can say that the woman's the weaker vessel because it's like the man can't become or be unless he's born of the womb. Mm. So the woman has to give birth. That's what I never understood. Is like, how can that be a weaker vessel when you have to come from that? Doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And there's one comment on that, about the emotions, of woman is that people really don't realize that emotions, instinct, what do they call it? Clairvoyancy, probably saying that wrong. These are all feminine. There are feminine principles and masculine principles. Right. The feminine is power. The masculine is force. One is not better than the other. That's how we always think of things. But force is when I have to, if I have to put in great effort to change reality, that is force. If I put in little effort to change an aspect of reality, that is power. And so when a woman creates, that's power because she's creating one of the most complex organisms that we know of on the planet with little effort. Not saying it's not hard. Right? It's a big belly, you're doing all that stuff, but for what she's doing is little effort. If I want to create a human or something that's human-like, which we have been trying, I have to do it in a lot more forceful way. Coding, machinery, we are trying, by the way. We've been trying for a while. And so you have power and you have, force. Another example of that is the egg. So power attracts things to it. Force must go into it. And this is literally the entire dynamic between men and women. I mean, not just men and women, male and female, through mammals. And the egg sits there, and a lot of people don't know the egg, decides which sperm it's going to allow to be fertilized. People think that it's just the sperm that forces itself in. Yes, the sperm has to force itself in, but the second component of that, the egg chooses. So when a woman's not having children, sometimes it's actually because the egg is turning down all of the sperm. And this is very important because the egg is put in a position of power that it can say yes or no to. Mm. And so this is very important when it comes to human dynamics, because we always try to figure out what makes that thing masculine. What makes this entity, this God, masculine? So when people get upset when I say the Most High and I depict a male, people get angry. But that's because when we talk about the Most High, and again, this goes into layers of God because it's feminine and masculine layers of God. And every masculine has a bit of feminine, every feminine has a bit of masculine. But when you're talking about a being that is sculpting things and going in to make sure things are in balance and fixing this here and fixing that, that's a masculine thing to do. When you have an entity that is just creating things, just letting things flow out of it and just letting things be what they're going to be, that is feminine. And so we understand those beings, we call them goddesses, those abstract beings that just things just flow out of, like earth. We say, man, that is a very feminine being,
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to.
Yeah. And I've had conversations just recently about how the creator is not feminine or masculine. The creator is something so far beyond that. It encapsulates feminine and masculine principles, but its essence is something we can only begin or try to understand.
Oh, yeah, we can't.
We're never going to even get there because we're coming from that. That's like goes back to, how am I going to give a name to my father? How am I going to give a name to my mother?
And that goes back to the all, like I said, I can't break it all down down here, but in the book goes into this a little bit, so I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's like most people miss it, but you might catch it. There's the all, existence itself. But like I said, I call it existence because I have nothing else to call it. It is I cannot comprehend it. I cannot give it a name, as you just said. Like, all I can say is that it exists, it is here, and we can try to describe it. But then from that, you start getting what I call the manifestations and layers of what we call gods. And what different cultures do is they decide which of these layers of God that they resonate with, and then we take that. So you have like the mother of all. Some societies, they say, that's who I'm going to worship. That's the version, that is the manifestation of God that one that just bursts things, that feminine force. And then the masculine force, which I call the I am, the consciousness, the thing that's coming into being, that is observing things and changing things just from looking at it, what we call consciousness, right? And we call that the masculine. And some cultures say, man, that is the version of God that I want to worship. So it's just, again, when I come on here again, and I know we're going to keep going because I said we can go over 2 hours, but I don't want to take all the time because we could talk. No, about I
get it. Forever. Yeah. You know. Let's go into some excerpts from your book, okay, from FFFHAMS. Right. So I'm going to read something, and then I want you to expound on this, because this was one of those pages that I was like, well, let me take a screenshot of that. It says, this is where I believe it's Max having a conversation with God. Who is this? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. The man's voice was deep and gravely. You may have difficult understanding what I am, he said. The who would be almost inconceivable with the language of man. I couldn't even tell you. It might be better if you learn who I was on your own. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I don't know what to say, I replied, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. I should hang up on you, so will you talk with me? The mystery man interrupted. About what? I asked. About my home. Where is your home? I asked, feeling more and more confused. Wait, why am I asking you? I'm hanging up. But before I can end the call, the man spoke again. Would you like to discuss the child you gave up instead? I felt the shock run through me. What? Who told you about my abortion? Is this some kind of sick joke? I was taken. Okay, so this is not about Max. My apologies. This is Belina. Yeah. I was taken aback by the mysteries man's words, feeling a mixture of confusion and fascination. You are always asking for forgiveness. No need, he said. The only person who will judge you in the end is yourself. It isn't your fault. Maybe your responsibility, but not your fault. What if this phone conversation is the conversation that brings you closer? What if you could build a place here on earth where no woman would have to dream of doing what you felt had to be done? Powerful stuff here, brother. I'm listening, I replied, feeling both intrigued and wary. The mystery man continued. Belina, I need you to help build my home for humanity. We will create a place of equality amongst men and women, a place of equality between all peoples, no classes, no hatred, just community. You all shall be as your ancestors were, happy, full of abundance, and full of sharing and love. Not heaven, not perfection, but a chance to start again in my garden. So you may have another chance to work toward heaven. This place is called a food, forest, foraging, hunting, anti-fragile modern society. So I have more, but that's just one of the pages that I took a screenshot of, right? And I want you to kind of go into that a little bit before I go into the next one, because the next one is Max. But I want you to kind of because I really want people to get this book, and not just because I like it. I think it is. You constantly are promoting how this book is a must read. And I've seen people in the comments being like, oh, are you you're monetizing this? Are you getting money? And I saw one of your comments is like, of course. Yeah. But I don't think that people realize that you're the author of this book when you do your videos on TikTok. I'm
starting to realize that.
Yeah. Because I wasn't. Even me. Like I thought you were a person that read this book and it changed your life.
Okay.
Not realizing that this is coming from your consciousness.
Okay. Now I'm just starting to realize that.
Yeah. So just a suggestion, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying maybe you should start letting people know. And I know this episode is going to do that for sure. Start letting people know that this book came from you.
Yes.
Because just from some of the comments I read, I'm like, these people think that he's trying to make money off this book instead of understanding what this book is really about and why. Yes. You're promoting an understanding understanding of how to evolve and break free from the matrix.
Yes.
And
100%.
But I don't think people understand that.
Yeah.
So I'm just letting you know that, because even I was like, I was going to be like, hey, can we get Eloheem Ali onto the show? But go ahead, if you can expound on that particular page and what you were bringing out.
Yeah, so this is the most interesting thing about these books is like, so I'm going to explain something before I go into detail. So what people call downloads, we talked about it earlier when I say things are given to me. So like the first, there's another book I wrote called The First Book, and I just wrote exactly what was given to me. I didn't make any changes to it. But sometimes I'm given things where it's like, here's the thing, but I'm allowed to tell it in the style in which I want to. That's the book FFFHAMS. So now the reason why I said that is because what you just read was so special that you read that part with Belina, because out of the entire book of FFFHAMS, that was the first thing I was given. The very beginning of that, as you start going on, some of it starts becoming like my own stylistic stuff. But the very beginning of what you were reading, like Belina and the mystery man talking, like I wasn't the originator of that in that way. Like I was the originator as I'm the one who wrote it, but it came in here and I had to write
channeled it. I
had to.
energy.
Yeah, I just had to write it. So I say that because there are parts in these books where I'm going to tell people what I think, but there's also deeper things to it. I'm going to, in 5 years from now, I'm going to come back to it and say, hey man, I actually learned this. It also meant this, because as people are, just like people are reading from me, it's being given to me, and I am always still learning what some of these things, also mean. So, but to go into it, another so special about that is I decided recently to go back. I always do this. I always go back into Genesis. I told you it's my favorite book. I always go back into Genesis and I read some more, but I decided this time that I was going to use the Dead Sea Scrolls, which surprisingly I have never done. I've never used the Dead Sea Scrolls upon my readings of the Old Testament, which sounds so weird for me to say now because I've been doing this for so long, but I did. And I already knew that there were different names, in the book. And I already knew that other cultures had these similar deities. So none of that was surprising in the least bit. The part that was surprising was in Deuteronomy. And it was surprising only because I was told this stuff, but I had no idea it had any relevance to any part in ancient writing that I found. That's why I always say I can't call these completely original, because later on I'll be reading, something, maybe oral history from a hunter-gatherer. I'll be reading something from the Hindus. I'll be reading something in the ancient Old Testament. I'm like, wait a second. I'm going to go back to this book I wrote a couple years back. It's right here. I wrote that. That was given to me. Blows my freaking mind every time it happens. Okay. So, so if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, you got to read a couple of different ones. You got to read Deuteronomy. You got to read the Tower of Babel again. You got to read Genesis. But what you find out is that El Elyon, who is called the Most High, he leaves. I didn't know this. This is new to me, according to these old texts. Now, this is a common theme, by the way, not just in Abrahamic old traditions. You could also find this kind of thing in ancient Egyptian, Kemetic type teaching. You can find these things in different places where, for some reason, the Most High gets into what some people call deism. He creates and then he sometimes leaves and comes back, and that he interfaces in his own way when he feels like it. And so this was the reason why this is interesting, is because you learn, if you read these old texts, these old Hebrew texts, and if you read their cultures, read beyond the text, which I always invite people to do, read about the cultures that these texts come from, read about the mythologies that didn't make it, because they actually give more context to what's actually being read in the Bible. The myths they tell you not to read give you more context to the Old Testament. But all of that to say, he had 70 children. Numbers are very arbitrary. I tell people, do not take these numbers literally. They normally have a deeper meaning anyway. They go into numerology and stuff. But 70 children, and the El Elyon and his wife, right, Asherah, they wanted humanity, also somebody else they demonized in the Bible, but they wanted humanity to live in the Garden of Eden. But not only did they want that, they wanted humanity, mind you, I'm just a few, maybe 4 months ago, just starting to piece all this stuff together. But FFFHAMS was given to me years ago. What they wanted was for humans to spread the Garden of Eden. This is so very important to the story. It's not mentioned. But after the corruption, what we call the fall, which I've said, I keep trying to tell people, it's agriculture. It's agriculture. Nobody wants to believe me on this. People hate to hear it. And I know it's hard to accept. It's agriculture, because what agriculture leads to, which is what they call in the ancient text Babylon, which is just a metaphor for civilizations. The reason why you know this, because in Genesis, it keeps, every time they build civilizations, God destroys it. They'll build it again, God destroys it. it. And then finally, God has it up to here. And this is at the time El Elyon. Now they put Yahweh's up. I think Josiah takes El out and puts Yahweh in later Hebrew text. But in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was still the Most High. And he says, you know what, man? Y'all don't want to, and this is what Deuteronomy talks about. Y'all don't want to listen to me. Y'all don't want to live your natural way. Y'all don't want to live by nature. You want to worship all these other, you want to do, this is what you want to do. You want to create these civilizations. Fine. You're free. Do what you want to do. But, in the story, he puts human under the rule of his children, which I also think is more metaphorical than literal. The reason why I say all that is because if you look at the way things are now, it's almost as if the Most High is communicating through millions of people. It is time to come back, y'all. Right? It's almost as, if you study people in spirituality, people in technology, everybody's trying to get back to something. Everyone on the planet right now. We're studying vibrations from ancient cultures. We're digging up things we've never found before. We're figuring out about goddesses. We're figuring out about all these things. And, and so in that specific, part of FFFHAMS that you read, without spoiling too much for the people watching, you have the one God above all. Sorry to spoil that, the mystery man, right? Trying to not only give the option, because it's always an option, people, it's always a choice, to return back to the way we're supposed to live, but also letting her know that there is a place that was made for you. That is my home as well. Remember, all these ancient myths go back to Greece, the Golden Age. The Golden Age is, again, another story of hunter-gatherers, another story of people living one with humanity. Living one with the earth. But also, what do you notice in all these? They walk amongst the gods. God lives with the people. Again, I think people should be more metaphorical with that than literal, but God lives with the people. Your home is God's home. The invitation is to come back home. When people go out and hunt, what do people do for vacation? They go and they fish. They walk in the forest. Some people go and they garden. Some they go out and they do all these things. They vacation on beaches. They swim in the water. This is what we do for free time. Some people literally go out and hunt with bow and arrows out into the forest, collecting fruits. Everybody's trying to get back to wild fruits now. That's where it's going. It's called organic now. Eventually people are just going to say, I just want wild food, right? No one wants to eat the processed food. It's a returning going on. You're being called. Everyone is being called back home. Everyone's being called back home. And so that is what that calling is. And that the home of humanity is the home of your God. Everybody's searching for God. Everyone is searching for God. It's this deep search for God. And the whole time, the place they told you not to go, the place they told you not to seek is where God is calling you back to the garden. So that it's funny because Belina gets chills from God talking. You reading it, I got chills. I love that part, that part of the book. And when it came to me, it was like, whoa, what the heck? I got to write this right now.
Now, I want to go into another page that I took a screenshot of that I wanted to go over with you. And it's where the explanation that God is giving about the story of Christ. So I'm going to read it because this was powerful. And I'm not going to even go into the astrology of it. I'm going to go into the concept of what the Bible and other literary books have brought out. But what I really love about what you bring out is the actual energy of Christ. Some people call it Christ consciousness, and it is a consciousness.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a man.
Yes.
And this is where you're going to lose people of religion because they're not understanding the order.
I lose, by the way, before you go into this, I lose both, by the way, with this part of the book. I've been criticized. Some Christians get a little upset, but also some people who are very spiritual, they just hear the name Christ and they get like,
and it's because of religion.
Yeah, exactly. So, but go ahead.
Hey, listen, sometimes when I hear people say Christ, I cringe.
Yeah.
Because I know they don't really understand like you understand. See, if you say Christ just off of your book, you get it. Yeah. And you break it down, or let me not use the word break. You bring it out.
I like that. I might start
wonderfully. You bring it out. So let's hear it. As God explained the connection between the story of Christ. Oh, okay. This does have some of the astrology in it. But we're going to go into this. Okay. So as God explained the connection between the story of Christ and the astrological sign of Sagittarius, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. This is a lot lot to take in, I admit it. I always thought that this was evidence that Christ was merely a story made up and based on the stars. But you're telling me that this is the spirit of Christ, which comes from the abstract and manifests throughout time and space. So did he exist historically? And this is a question that a lot of people present day have.
Yes.
That's why I say people go read this book. And also, let me make this very clear. Here at the Network of Awareness, that even though I appreciate this book, I appreciate it. Doesn't mean you have to. And I'm not telling you to read it because I'm just saying that if you want to gain perspective on this experience that you're having within this matrix, go get this book. Doesn't mean that you even said it. This book doesn't have all the truth in it.
Yep.
And it's also coming from your experiences and your experiences with the divine and the spiritual entities that come from divine.
Yes.
So it says, he asked the question, so that he exists historically. Christ, and this is God talking in the book, Christ exists before history, before the past, much more than a historical figure. God replied, there are not manifestations of Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth. No, instead, Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth, who you all called the historical figure of Jesus Christ, is a manifestation of the abstract being. I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder as I listened to God's words. It was as if I was witnessing something profound and timeless, something that transcended the boundaries of history and the physical world. And this is what people don't understand when it comes to divine source energy. It does. It just is. It is the ever-present moment of all happening at the same time. It says, as God explained the abstract nature of Christ, my mind was reeling with questions. What abstract being, I asked, trying to make sense of what God was saying? Order, God replied simply. Order is a being. I asked, incredulous. Oh, yes, that is my point, God said. Order, it's its own being, and its story is its word. The word or story will manifest within the all in every way and on every level, from the quantum to the cosmos. Not just order, but also entropy, math, love, anger, etc. They all exist within the abstract and reproduce like you through manifestation. And by the way, manifestation is not witchcraft, but I couldn't even help but feel overwhelmed by this revelation. That really is a lot to take in, I said. So basically, the historical events are not Christ in his true form, but manifestations of the abstract Christ, the same as the astrological events. And the reason why there are other deities who are in a line with the same way is that they are also manifestations of Christ. Who and what is a manifestation of order? God nodded, yes. You call the stories and characters could also be called powerful spirits. Some of these spirits, like Christ, are extremely powerful. But why are you calling it Christ? What is the real name? I asked. And I'm going to end it there because that was the one page. But let's go into that because you give a really good breakdown of what Christ is before that page. Like you go into the whole essence of where that comes from. And then you also integrate it into astrology, which one of my favorite documentaries is Zeitgeist, because in the beginning of Zeitgeist, they talk about that. How this is all literary hybrid and this is all allegory of astrology. But it's even deeper than that because it's all encompasses the human experience, the cosmos, and even the animals. It all is intertwined coming from this divine force. 100%. And that's not even going beyond the Anunnaki or the children of the sky, because there's beings that look like you and me that are not from this place. 100%. And that are not actual Homo sapiens. There's something else, whether it be Adronoman, Arcturian, or whatever you want to call them. This is one thing I say. If you want to understand the Most High, or if you want to understand the creator of all, you got to first understand who you are and what you are before you can even begin to understand anything besides that. And I think that most people are afraid to do that because that's where that whole witchcraft thing comes in, demonic energy. And let's get it right. Like there is shadows, there are negative malevolent forces. There are. When you categorize everything as malevolent because you don't understand it, you lose out on what the creator really is. And your experience and what is trying to be given to you for you to evolve. But I know I said a lot and I just want to see what you have to say about that particular page and what you were bringing out for the audience.
No, I mean, the thing is, one, I want to say for everybody everybody, like the way I perceive, it goes the same way with like Belina, right? I don't perceive her as a fake person. I just want to give this disclaimer before I say anything else. I don't think I would find Belina on this planet. I don't perceive her as a fake person. I think that she exists somewhere within the universe, the multiverse, the abstract somewhere. And it's ironic because it kind of mirrors itself, right? Because this is also a story, and this story is also coming from an abstract and a spirit, and so on and so forth, right? So when they're having this conversation, she's coming from a perspective that I used to have as well, which is like, oh, so these stories are just, made up, and this person's just based off this made up story, whatever. But what you find is that these abstract beings, order, entropy, anger, whatever, they transcend us. And like all things, they want to manifest, and they do manifest. And you brought up the Anunnaki, right? The Eloheem. I mean, I can go on and on with the Neter, right? People are debating right now, are these beings humans who used to be kings and rule over that we still talk about? Are these beings aliens? Are these beings actual gods? Whatever that means. Actual gods? Are these beings different, ultra terrestrials or interdimensional beings? Are these beings, even higher than that, right? What I want everybody to understand is all can be true at once, meaning things manifest on all levels. If I have, and we talked about this already, but when we talked about the Great Mother, which is just a womb, the womb, whatever is the oldest medium or structure in which we all come from, is the original womb and is the greatest of mothers, is the first mother. That doesn't mean that she is the only great mother. In fact, it means the opposite. That will continuously manifest it doesn't matter if you're an alien on another planet, that's going to manifest. It doesn't matter when we talk about your mind, which is also a medium and structure in which things develop in, right? You have a womb and your mind is a womb, and that happens all the time. Because she is divine. That's what makes her divine. She will manifest on every single level that there can be a manifestation. And so I could find the Great Mother with people, with humans, with dogs, with animals, with abstract things like the mind, with stories, with aliens, with planets, with other Earth-like planets out there. And that's the problem with our mind, is that we're given these, in the Matrix, we're given these false dichotomies all the time. And race is always a good example of this. Are you black or are you white? Doesn't make any sense, by the way. I don't know any black and white people, but are you black or are you white? And now I got to choose. Now I got to make a decision between these two false dichotomies. So somebody asks me, hey, Eloheem, are the Anunnakis aliens or not? I mean, that's a false dichotomy. There could have been, a group of people. We were talking about Yahweh earlier. We could talk about a historical being, right? Who was on this planet, who was a king, right? But before he lived, there might have been a deity that had all his personality traits that somebody worshiped that never got brought up, that never got written about, never got spoken about, because that pattern of personality, I'll say this, just for people because I always want people to understand what I'm saying, who are going to be watching this. And this is going to blow some people's mind. I talk about this in what's called the second book. It's not FFFHAMS number 2. It's called the second book. It's a sequel to the first book, or the book called the first book. Okay. So it talks about how, someone asks the earth, what's your great secret? What's the earth's secret? And earth says, my secret is that nothing ever dies. They say, what about all the things that go extinct? The earth says, none. They're all still here. And what it goes into is what some people don't know about in evolution is that we can find certain beings throughout all time because their environment existed throughout all time. This is where it gets deep. And I want people to understand this because it's going to help you understand how the universe works. There's an organism right now. I forgot what his name. If anybody can go look up false cat or faux cat. It is a creature that is it's actually related to a lemur, and it moves like a cat. If you saw it, you would think that it's a cat. It's not genetically related to any cat that's ever existed on the planet, but it looks, it moves, and behaves like a cat. This is important because you'll find out on Earth that the niche of a being, if the niche exists, the niche is just the environment, whatever environment is supposed to encompass, whatever it's supposed to be doing in this specific environment. If that niche exists, then it will exist. Doesn't matter if they all go extinct. If that niche on Earth pops up again, then that being will pop up. This is why you can have it, right? I don't like to go into aliens too much because I do think people focus a little too much on it, but people always ask, why do some of these aliens look like us? If there is a planet in which the niche that created humanity on Earth, or the being, or the abstract niche, whatever you want to call it, the niche exists, the environment exists, the system existed, then it will create the same thing. thing. So what you call humans might not be genetically related on different planets, but they'll act the same, move the same, walk the same, have the same body parts. You go in the ocean, you'll find killer whales or orcas, dolphins, and sharks have very similar bodies. Sharks and dolphins have similar bodies. They are not the same. They are not the same. In fact, you might see the dorsal fin come through the water. You might think it's a shark, right? So meaning that systems create things. Abstract entities create things. So when we're talking about the creator, it's deeper than people even know. There are systems set up for you to develop in and be made in. So when you're thinking about the creator making things, we've been programmed to think like action figures. Creator made this person, he made him walk and all of that, right? It's much more deeper and more sophisticated than that. If I put down systems, then that system will create things automatically. And so in saying that, that's the way that these abstract beings come into being, is that they must exist in all these settings because they're there. So the Anunnaki, the Elohim, all of them, they will, if they exist, if you see them on one level, you can bet anything that they exist on another level. And you as well. If you exist on this level, then you can bet anything.
I have myself on mute. But yes, we're in a multiverse. There are multiple duplications of us in different frequencies.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with my friend's daughter about, I said, listen, there is an evolution happening on this planet where people like you and I and many others are ascending into higher states of consciousness, higher frequencies and vibrations. So there's some of us that are on 97.1 right now, but some of us are going to go to 97.6.
Yep.
And once you go to 97.6, I'm no longer in 97.1. Just not, I'm not going to be in the same frequency as you. You're not going to even know I exist because you're not there. Yeah. And I'm not there anymore where I was.
You're going into frequencies and exactly.
Dimensions, multitude of dimensions. And I believe that these beings that were considered gods are not gods. They're just beings that broke through on how to travel interdimensionally. Yeah. And they come here and we worship them because they can do things we can with the technology and understanding that they have. Yeah. Now, I want to go into another, this will be the last one. This will be the last paragraph here. This is where, I think this is Max talking to God, having a conversation with God. In your book, you go through the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes, I do.
Now, what's interesting, and the Matrix showed us this because the author of the Matrix breaks it down, but you know, the Wachowski brothers stole it or whatever, and she got all that money. In the Matrix, they show you that the apocalypse already happened. You think you're living in this world, but this is how it really looks. When Morpheus says, this is the world we really live in. Yeah. Okay, so we're living in this simulation of what we think is, but this is what the reality is. And the machine's done taken over.
Yes.
Okay, and you're the battery.
So awesome, man.
So awesome. So awesome, right? But now this is where in this part of the book, you've already gone through the White Horseman. And for those, you know, definitely check out Philosophy of Order on TikTok because you give a lot of breakdowns on this. You go through the White Horseman, you go through the Red Horseman. Now we're up to the Pale Horseman. It says, next was the Pale Horse. I said confidently. No, Max, God said firmly. The Pale Horseman was always here. As I look, there was a pale horse, and his rider's name was Death. Hades followed along behind him. They were given authority over a quarter of the earth to kill with the sword, and with famine, and with death, and by means of earth's wild animals. Revelations chapter 6, verse 8. I don't understand, I admitted. They were given authority over the earth? No, it says they were given authority over the earth, God said, to kill with the sword. The White Horseman, I guessed. God nodded. And with famine. The Red Horseman, I murmured. God's voice grew even more ominous. And with death. I felt the chill run down my spine. That's what it all adds up to in the end. Death. God leaned down toward me, his eyes fierce. Beware the pale horse. It all makes sense, I said, my voice shaking. The seals have been broken and we are living in post-apocalyptic times, but we have grown used to it. So used to it that we have confused them with us, with human nature. Death rules the planet. Everything is dying. We are facing a mass extinction. We are living in Hades, the underworld, hell on earth. Where we are used to war, bombs, mass shootings, starvation, homelessness, pandemics, slavery, prison, corruption, and untold horrors. So true. We watch our screens, hell on earth, and shrug our shoulders, and we are off to the plantations. That was such a powerful statement right there, because that is the world that we live in a nutshell.
Yeah.
If somebody came here from another planet, what type of world do you live in? Just read that right there, and that'll sum it up. God listened patiently and then spoke in his deep, booming voice. Or at least that's how the story goes. But what can we do? I asked, feeling helpless. Listen, Max, God said urgently. You must run, but do not flee. Go to a place where there is grass from acre to acre, 1,500 acres of land. I will be there waiting with your tribe. But my tribe is here, I protest. God's eyes bored into mine. Not for long. You must go to Georgia, Max. Your destiny awaits.
Yeah.
So you can expound on that right there, because that, the breakdown of the four horsemen apocalypse is amazing. But if you want to, expound on that for the listeners, so that we can get them engaged and even wanting to read this book.
So yeah, that was that part is very interesting, because that was one of the things I remembered that was given to me when I had the experience, when I just finally decided to listen to what the entity had to say. And I didn't understand that at all. How could the world have already ended? That doesn't make any sense. And earlier in the book, God is trying to explain this to Max, but Max is having a hard time understanding it because his perception of the end of the world. And so God uses the language of his culture, which is the Western culture and Christianity, to explain this point of view, just for for the listeners. And so the world has already ended. I don't think that is a subjective thing. I think this is very objective. But what happens to people, and you've heard me talk about this on my TikTok countless times, but I always refer back to, like any real expert and scholar, I refer back to Avengers Endgame with Thanos. And what happens is Thanos says something very interesting that I think went over a lot of people's heads.
That whole movie went over a lot of people.
Yeah. Thanos says, you know what? I'm grateful for you all. You showed me that, mankind will always be ungrateful. So I'm going to destroy this universe and break it down to its very last atom, and then rebuild it anew of people who do not know of what they lost, only of what they gained. And you are those people, right? Like, we are the people who only know of what we gained. We have no idea of what we lost. If I was to take, humanity from 50,000 years ago and put them into the time now, they would be horrified. And I'm not exaggerating. People think I'm exaggerating because we're so used to it. But if I told them, like, hey, over in another country now, right now, there's a whole war, a bunch of people are dying. Actually, in multiple countries, people are being wiped out and killed and every day. Also, these people are starving of famine. Also, this disease has been running rampant and killing all these people. Also, we have all these sexually transmitted diseases now. So we got to put, material over our private parts in order not to get these things. Oh yeah. Then there's this thing called cancer that's just like wiping everything. I mean, if I literally sat them down and explained the world in which we live in, they would freak out and they would beg and plead to be returned to where they are from. And this is important for me to say, because most people have this perspective, again, that the Matrix has given us, that they would be happy to be here. Only if ancient man could come here, they would be just so glad to be in such a great place. This is the lie that we are told over and over, So yes, the white horseman. I didn't have time to go into this in the book, but what I call the spirit of the West, I call it the Antichrist only because I know that people will understand what I mean when I say that, but I would call it the spirit of the West, what people call the Antichrist, the white horseman. The spirit of the West is a spirit of conquering, of conquest. I'm here to rule over and subjugate everything, everybody.
Right. And colonialize, yeah.
Exactly. And I will do it under a false pretense of peace and of a loving God, right? This is the whole thing of the Antichrist. I will come in the name of Christ. The first slave ship name was Jesus, right?
That's right.
This stuff was pushed out by the Catholic Church. By who? The Roman Catholic Church. Who are the Romans? The Romans are the original ones. I don't want to say the original because there was many. The most successful ones who had the vision of worldwide conquering. And if anybody doesn't believe me, go back to the person who took the philosophy. Originally, it was just a philosophy of Yeshua, right? That everybody had a different interpretation of, right? Nobody talks about early Christianity, which bugs me out. No one talks about the big gap of time, the hundreds of years between the Council of Nicaea and the death of Yeshua. Nobody talks about this, right? This is important because they had different beliefs. Some people said that he was a prophet. Some people said that he was the son of God. Some people said that he was God himself. They had all these different beliefs and they had different philosophies, and that was okay. Constantine says, you know what, man? Constantine, no matter of fact, just to get deeper for people, Constantine said that he had a vision. I'm not saying this. Constantine said this. I had a vision. I was going to lose a war and I had a vision. And his vision was a voice that said, with this symbol, you shall conquer. And it was a cross. I'm not making this up. Go read this stuff.
Very well documented, brother.
Exactly.
Very well documented.
People can read this. And what did they do? They conquered with that. And he took over. He reorganized. You have a government. I just want to put this in perspective for everybody. You have a government taking hold of a spiritual system, reforming it, and then distributing out to the people as the religion. I just want to put this under, so people can understand what's happening here. This is a government taking control of a spiritual system, making a religion out of it, and then redistributing it to the people so that they can control the narrative of this people. And then they say that I have the universal church now. And we are not a kingdom anymore. We are a church. And we are going to rule with kindness. And everything we do is we're doing it because the one God said that we should do it. And they do this and they conquer the whole planet like this. And then what happens next? Because that's the white horseman. What happens next? Naturally, the red horseman is the one who will take peace from the earth, right? Now, I ask people all the time because everybody says, no, the red horse is about to come soon. So I always ask the question. I'm like, well, it says that he will take peace from the earth. You tell me what peace we got on earth right now. Right? You explain it to me. If you said the red horseman is coming to words about, you explain the peace on the earth that we have right now, right? The last time, this all has to do with the fall of man, hunter-gatherers, civilization. Now we have no peace on earth. And then the red horseman comes and literally everybody ignores this. This is the first world war. The entire world, because of the conquest of the white horseman, the entire planet breaks out into war. Africa, the Americas, Asia, everybody's going to war. Everyone is going to war. Everyone is killing each other. And then everybody ignores, and I'm sure you're very, you know this history very well. Everybody ignores what happens in the Americas. The vast majority of the humans in America are decimated, wiped out, killed, murdered, slaughtered, killed through disease. I mean, this stuff is real, right? And it speaks to how people, in my opinion, must not see Native Americans as human. And I'm not just talking about Europeans. I'm talking about everybody on the planet. And the reason why I say that is because how are we going to gloss over this? We're talking a nice estimate, a low estimate is 90%. 90%. That is 1 out of every 10 people surviving. Just to put that into context for people watching. Then you had this happen between not one continent, 2 continents, right? North and South America. I'm going to break them into 2 continents because they're so little connected. Well, let's say 2 continents, right? You got North and South America wiped out. Histories, languages, gone, right?
Yeah.
And people just, they shrug their shoulders at it.
Because it's that spell. It's the spell that you talk about too, because you know what spells are. It's it's people inheriting narratives that were given to them, and now they're under that spell. Exactly. Because somebody gave them a narrative to believe in. That's why the whole spell about so-called black people are the only people that were enslaved. Not realizing that all people of all different nationalities have been enslaved throughout the ages, throughout the eons. This is not a black or white thing. This is a human thing.
This is a humanity problem that we got going on here, right? And first of all, what people need to understand is that Pan-Africanism or like I'm a Pan-Africanist, right? That's a political thing. It's not a biological thing. The most biodiversity you're going to find between 2 humans are in Africa. So the 2 people that are going to be the most different genetically are Africans. So, the reason why I say that is because also when you look at Native Americans, right? And when you look at Asians, there's different groups of people within these people. Trying to break people up in colors doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually work. Instead, realize that you just have again, going back to what we said, the creator loves biodiversity. You have a huge bit of biodiversity under one group called humans. That's what this is. We're all humans. And so if on one half of the earth, even though it's a globe, we'll say one half of the earth, right, is wiped out. That is an attack on humanity. That is an attack on humanity. And that's what I'm saying people aren't thinking about when we talk about what happened to the Native Americans. I'm like, we're literally talking about an attack on humanity like the world to this day has never seen before. And then the other half of humanity, like you were just talking about, African peoples, Asian peoples, the Native Americans who are left are all enslaved and told, if you do not come under this belief of the spirit of the West, the Antichrist, the Catholic Church, we are going to kill you. So in the streets, what they call that is get down or lay down. You figure it out. But this is the way it's going to go, you know? And, you know, that's the Red Horseman. War breaks out because naturally, you know, whether you're a hunter-gatherer or not, the warrior spirit in the Americas, the warrior spirit in Africa, the Asias. And by the way, just to let everybody know, when it comes to the Europeans, the reason why I don't like to say the Europeans did all this, you never hear me say that. I say the elitists did this because the first ones to be subjugated, enslaved, and wiped out were the indigenous people in Europe. You don't hear about them because they were wiped off the planet. There were hunter-gatherers there. There were spiritualists there, shamans, people. The Romans hated them. You can go read the Roman history. They decimated them. Everything that happened across the world happened there first. Wipe these people out. I mean, it's so bad that Europeans who try to learn their indigenous history on Europe can't find it anywhere. And it's so bad that they said, man, they can't find it, so they thought they were aliens. They thought that the Europeans thought they were aliens. What happened was their people were completely decimated by this spirit that goes across the earth. So then the Red Horsemen, right? War. And then what comes next? Because after war, they spread their version, right, of society, the matrix civilization, across the planet. And famine, and I tell these people all the time, famine is a man-made issue. You can only have famine with agriculture. When humans are going through famine, guess who's not going through? When everybody's going through famine, the hunter-gatherers, they're just living their lives. Might be a drought going on, but they still eating. They still playing. But everybody who depended on the agriculture are dying. And we also don't talk about it in history. We had the numbers of people who died from famine after all the wars, because World War I and II have to be connected to colonialism, by the way. And the last thing I'll say on this, because I can go on this forever, about the world ending is, and about hundreds of millions of people dying, billions of people dying, all this, right? The last thing I want to say on this, when we bring up, you know, famine, you know, disease, agriculture, the Red Horsemen, the White Horsemen, is that, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, when we talk about the spirit of the West, there, you are still within the apocalypse or the revelation. You are still in the world that is ending. The world didn't already, it's not that just it already ended. That explosion of our world ending did not stop. And how we know that is, I just want somebody to name me one world war that has nothing to do with colonialism. Just name one, or slavery. Just give me one world war, one major war that we've had that has nothing to do with what's going on right now in Israel. The British said, here, y'all, take this. That had everything to do with colonialism. Just name me, that was land that they colonized. I've asked people, just give me one. Hiroshima, dropping the bomb. Somebody just give me something that doesn't have to do with colonialism and what, it's all connected. It is all one. What I like to tell people is one war. It's one giant event. And when ancient people 1,000 years from now look back on this, I mean, future people look back on us as ancient people, they're not going to categorize this as little separate incidents. They're going to say, man, they had this one long drawn out war from the elitist and everybody else. So yeah, I'll end with that, man. But yeah, that's what that was going in on. And yeah, man, I'm glad that you brought that one up. You know, people have a hard time with it. It's hard, but
it's the war of that death, which is caused by chaos and confusion and division. You know, it's a power structure, and it's been around for a long time. And it's the perpetual cycle of the fall of man, you know, of mankind. And it's just playing itself out
exactly
through century. And this is new. If you think about it,
exactly,
you know, what we know is new compared to things that have already happened, let's say 500,000 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So there's been a perpetual cycle of Earth being destroyed and then being rebuilt all over again.
And I just want to say, going back to, like I said, the power of, because not just El Elyon, you have most high gods and Native American spiritualities, African spiritualities, and Greece, Rome, you have these most highs that they are consistently saying to the peoples, I've told y'all not to do this thing,
right?
But you keep doing it. And you're going to have to live with the consequences now, because I'm going to let y'all go. And it's crazy, because I'm like, that's what's been happening. It's just like, okay, this is what y'all want to do. I'm going to let y'all see what this brings you. And it brings death. That's what this ultimately brings. That's why it ends with the pale horseman. Behold, death is what it's saying. Behold, when Revelations is to reveal. Apocalypse is to reveal. What is being revealed? What you could not see. Death. It's everywhere. It's crazy, but you can't see it. So to an apocalypse is to reveal something that was always there, but you couldn't see it. And so that's what, you couldn't see that the world had ended. You couldn't see it, but it was always there to be observed until they removed the veil. That's why we call it the awakening. That's why I tell people, like, don't forget why we call it the awakening. Why we call it conscious, because you're waking up, you're like, whoa, I didn't see all this here originally.
Right.
How long has this been here? It's been here forever. You just didn't see it. it. So hopefully now that this is being revealed to us, right, the hope, and we have the power to do it, we go into a new age, right? That is what this is about. That's why you have that knowledge. That's why all these podcasts here, these TikToks, these algorithms, all this stuff is a chance. Another chance is what I'm telling everybody. We don't get them too much. We have a chance to set this thing right. So hopefully we can do that.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a quick question, simple answer, and then we'll wrap it up and I'll get your final thoughts. This is a question that I usually ask people in private, but I'm going to do it publicly here. Okay. What's most important to you? And if you want to give it in a certain order of importance, or if you just want to claim one, but what's most important to you? Unconditional love, awareness, knowledge, or understanding?
Unconditional love, awareness, knowledge, or understanding. That's a good question. Awareness, knowledge, understanding. I'm having a problem between awareness and unconditional love. And having in my mind that they're battling out. I'm going to have to go awareness. Number one, got to be awareness, because
awareness to me is everything.
Yeah, I was about to say, because it goes back to again, we got to go soon, so I'm not going to take it into a whole rant, but yeah, awareness, because consciousness is everything. So without consciousness, is what are those other things? And so unconditional love was up there for me because that was more of a bias. I've been raised in unconditional love and to love unconditionally. So it's close. The concept is close to my heart, but objectively, I would have to go ahead and put awareness.
Yeah, because you got to be aware of unconditional love. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, so with that being said, we're just hitting the 3-hour mark, literally in the next 30 seconds or so. So your final thoughts, and take as long as you want, on this particular episode called Discover the Hidden Truths of the Matrix Beyond the Illusion.
So I really want to hone in on two things. One, and a lot of those ancient stories is really just knowledge, though they get corrupted and disjointed and rewritten. If you look hard enough, you can see the message there. I'm going to tell you the message, but it's up to you to believe it or not. The message really is to be one with the all, the universe, nature, earth. The message gives you the purpose of humanity, there's certain creatures on this planet that if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, the earth is in danger, right? If bees all disappeared and died, we'd be in trouble. We'd be in some real trouble. If bees just stopped doing what they're supposed to do, we'd be in trouble. The earth is in trouble right now because humans are one of those beings on the planet, right? Humans used to go around creating ecosystems. This is no exaggeration. The Amazon rainforest was, some people like to say recreated, some people say created by humans. It was a giant food forest. Anybody can go check and look that up. They were hunter-gatherers. They had different mindset, right? They looked at the earth a little differently than we do. Not even a little, a lot differently. So for them, they wouldn't answer their problems by creating something mechanical. They would answer their problems by doing something the earth would like to happen anyway. In other words, they created alongside with earth instead of opposed to earth as we do today. And so they used to go around creating forests. They found a forest that was struggling. They would build it back up. They'd give it new soil. They would introduce organisms that might help it thrive. They would plant certain trees. I mean, this is all true. Anybody can go look this up. What you find upon the use of agriculture that we can find in archaeology, there's a correlation between the time we start going really hard in agriculture and when you start seeing the Sahara Desert. Where you see the Sahara Desert in Africa used to be just all forest, very vibrant, verdant forests, very lush, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. Now it's a desert. Humans perceive themselves as something separate from the earth. That's the doing of the Matrix. It wants you to think that, but you're not. Meaning, just like all organisms, if you take us out of our nature, it's going to have consequences for us. It's going to have consequences for the planet. So once humans come back into their purpose, as all these stories are trying to say, it's not like El Elyon or Atum-Re or Anu or any Most High God that you worship or love. I don't personally believe, I don't know, right? Could happen that they're just going to come, like they're going to physically come and just say, boom, you did it. I'm back. But what I think it's talking about is like once you are realigned with this stuff, then unimaginable happiness, joy, and health will come about on earth, right? It's hard for you to imagine because this is all you know. You don't know anything else. Even hunter-gatherers who are healthier wealthier than us, happier than us, they're not living in the environment that it would be because they're surrounded by agriculturalist civilizations, pollution. Unfortunately, they're not even really living in the true environment they would be. So that's one. I want everybody just to know that. It doesn't matter what you believe in spiritually, religiously, like that is something I really want you to understand about humanity. And for those who are more spiritual, I want to tell you that, the all existence, the most high, your ancestors did not forget about you, and that you just got to listen. You got to be open to the message that you're receiving. And then the last thing I wanted to say is about the Matrix, because I want people to take the Matrix very seriously. Civilization is not what you've been told it is. Civilization is not the epitome of mankind. Civilization is not synonymous with technology. Civilization is not the answer to all. Almost every problem that we have on this planet that civilization is said to solve is also created by civilization. War did not come about until civilization, or I want to say strategic war. I'm not going to say and act like hunter-gatherers never got into a fight, right? I'm not going to do that. It just wouldn't be true. But actual war, especially annihilation war, killing large groups of people in order to take their land, wasn't a thing. We don't have evidence of it being, slavery. All these things come with agriculture. What happens is the matrix is unsustainable. This is spoke about in Genesis when it says, well, now that you've eaten of the fruit, the ground is cursed. What happens is the farms take the nutrients from the land and it will not give it back, right? And so because of that, the farm always has to keep moving out. But the farm is not a part of nature. So you got to cut down the trees. You got to kill the animals. You got to spray it with pesticides to kill all the insects. But these things that you're killing are what create forests. These things is what creates the earth. So what you get is a system that's unsustainable but must expand by the destruction of the thing that it is on, which makes it unsustainable. And so what happens, you run into people. You got to kill them because you need the land to feed the people. Unfortunately, you have to enslave them because you need more people to work the land, right? These things all come out of it. The best way I can explain the Great Devourer, the Matrix, civilization to you is like a vampire. Watch any movie about a vampire. You'll notice that a vampire takes and it doesn't give back. Vampires do not pee. They do not defecate, right? They eat, they take from, and they will never release it back. It's all to maintain themselves. None of being a vampire is about giving anything back to the earth. They are opposed to everything. They are separate from everything. And the reason why they are death is because wherever they go, everything is going to die because they have to eat it all. They have to suck it all up and then move to the next location to do the same thing without restoring this place that they were last at. But on the way, they also create other vampires. The ones who survive become the vampires. And so the Matrix is the same way. It comes, it takes, it never gives back. And whatever place it conquers or takes over, the people who survive, they end up adopting those strategies of life. And they spread this spirit of the West, this civilization across the globe. So take it seriously. You can escape it. Mortgages, family, rent. Y'all heard me say this in my videos. Mortgages, rent, all that stuff. All these things we're doing, it's made up. You don't have to live that life. FFFHAMS is the system that is going to free humanity. People can call it what they want. They can make a better system. This is not a religion, right? If you grab FFFHAMS and you're smarter than me and you make it even better, more power to you. Just share the even better to me, right? Let me know what the even better is. And right. If I don't agree, go out and make it anyway. Maybe in one instance is better and maybe here it's better, but that's how things evolve. We don't have to operate in the states of these false economies. Either it's right or it's wrong. We don't have to do that. That's not even how organisms work. This organism is right for this environment and it's wrong for that environment. This system works in this environment and it doesn't work in that environment. It doesn't have to be that. So that's what that's the things I would like to say. Definitely read the book. There's also the book called the first book, the book called the second book. Those are more to get your mind in the right place. And FFFHAMS Generation 2 should be coming out in the summer. I don't like to put dates on it, but I'm excited to share the next one. And when you finish reading it, that's when you should have it back on. We can even dive even deeper.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be finishing it very soon. So I want to thank you to everybody in the network of awareness, on my network of awareness, and people around the world. This is Eloheem Ali, and this is not the first time that the brother's gonna come here. We have him back on the show, and let's give him a nice round of applause here.
Thank you.
Stick around. I'm going to end the show, but I want you to stick around for a moment. Okay. So, like I said, get the book. Let me put the book cover. This is how the book cover looks. And, I'm going to take this banner off here. FFFHAMS, right? Get the book. Food, Forest, Foraging, Hunting, Anti-Fragile Modern Society, Generation 1 by Eloheem Ali. Get the book. And we're going to put, Eloheem Ali's, website in the description box if you want to learn more about the brother and all the good work he's doing. And also we're going to have his TikTok page on the links as well for the description box. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for taking the time. If you stood for this 3-hour presentation and episode, congratulations. If not, you can always go back to it and just get it in bits and pieces. But if you come up to this point, I want to thank you. And with that being said, like I always end my shows, and we'll end the show now. And give me 1 second. Eloheem, I'm just going to take you off screen here for a second. Brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for joining me on this wonderful episode. And I really appreciate having guests like Ali on the show, because there's a great awakening happening. And like we discussed, that second coming of Christ, people think it's a man going to come, but really the second coming of Christ, which is the second coming of order, has to happen within you, has to happen as an individual process. That sacred secretion has to happen with you individually. But the more that it happens in this great awakening collectively is when the true second coming for restoration, rehabilitation of this planet, and where we can get back to our true authentic selves is when it's all going to happen. So with that being said, as always, when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. And I hope that this episode is going to give you an opportunity for a new beginning in the present moment. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is ORRA the Information signing off, saying peace, love, and light.